Hey everybody, what's up? It's your boy MJ, and welcome to the Black Wine Guy Experience Before the Pour, aka 20 Questions with MJ. My guest today is Sommelier, Wine Sales and Marketing Phenom, and Chief Revenue Officer, that shit is dope, for Hundred Acres Wine Group, Landon Patterson. A native of Southern California, Landon began his wine career as a sommelier in Las Vegas, working with the venerable Wolfgang Puck at his signature restaurants on the Vegas Strip. While there, he built a passion and a strong platform of knowledge focused on international luxury wines with a specialty in wines from Italy and Spain. Landon's love of wine and natural ability to impart that passion to consumers, especially luxury consumers, quickly led him into the world of sales and marketing. Over the last 20 years, his deep knowledge of international and luxury wines seamlessly translated into working as a sales and marketing leader with a small U.S. family-owned wine producers. And then Landon Patterson became a member of the 100 Acre team at the beginning of 2013. Over the past 8 years, he has managed all aspects of sales and marketing, which work hand in hand in driving revenue, and expanded the 100 Acre portfolio of wines into 35 countries on 4 continents. When he's not traveling the world for work, he's also a dog daddy to his beloved French Bulldog, Sigmund. Welcome, Landon. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Oh, there's so much I'd like to add.
Oh, this is the first. So
yeah,
add some shit.
No, that was
no,
good.
no. Most people are like, he's so dope. Most people are like, oh my god.
No, you know what? When you write that stuff, you're like, is it too much? How much more? You know, because I as you'll get to know me, and a lot of people know me in the industry, but I got a pretty big personality, so there's a lot of good stories and stuff. But well, that's a good start. You know, it's a good place to begin. So.
I love it. All right, man. So to warm us up a bit, I'm gonna start by asking you some personal questions. Then they'll be followed by every now and then I let people. It's actually the Proust questionnaire, which was made famous by James Lipton on Inside the Actors Studio.
I'm a fan.
All right. So the key is answer them quickly. First thing that comes to your head. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What is your favorite book?
Favorite book? Ooh, it would be A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle.
Okay.
So I'm a spiritual dude. I'm very much into that. So.
Okay. I have a few books. I have Eckhart's books, but like, I'm old school, like with so many things. So like, check out. Oh my God, I'm looking at the book right now. It's called The Power of Decision. Raymond Charles Barker.
Okay, yeah.
Raymond Charles Barker books are kind of dope.
Yeah, I'm a guy who's got like 10 books on rotation. Like I'm an avid reader, so I've got 4 different, like right now I'm into Stoic philosophy, so I'm reading books on Marcus Aurelius and Zeno and stuff like that. So I'm always kind of like trying to expand my mind. That's always something that's on my mind when I'm not like learning about wine or food and people like that.
Yeah,
so.
I was on the Stoics for a while. I do subscribe to Ryan Holiday, so at least I get my little hit.
Yeah,
every
right.
day.
I'm reading his Daily Stoic and all that type of stuff. That's in my bag right now. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
Totally.
All right, we're on the same page.
Yeah.
We're living well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. What's your favorite movie?
Ooh, I'm gonna be not that exciting and say probably Goodfellas because it's just a classic.
Come on.
I grew up on mob movies and all that stuff for sure. I also am gonna throw out a little something. One of my all-time favorite movies is Last of the Mohicans.
Okay.
It's a it's from a famous writer. So from the 1800s, that whole like frontier story and like living on your own and doing your thing, and also like blasting guys from like a mile away in the 1800s. That seemed pretty cool. So I'm into that. So
that's cool.
You know, I'm showing my range. I'm sensitive.
You got range.
I got long hair. Daniel Day-Lewis is dreamy. I'm into that. Who doesn't want to be Daniel Day-Lewis for like 15 minutes? That's the max.
Oh my God. Exactly. Who's your favorite musical artist?
Ooh, darn. Ooh, that's got to be really, really rough for me. I would say probably Bob Marley would be number 1. I'd probably go Bob Marley, Miles Davis, Rolling Stones. Those 3 would kind of be my zone for sure. I'm a SoCal kid, so reggae
I know. So you got that whole Sublime, that kind of ska reggae.
Yeah, I mean, I'm from Long Beach. I live in Long Beach. Like Sublime, I used to see them when I was 15 in backyard parties for $5 in beer money.
Ozo
Motley, all that type of stuff. So OC, Cali roots, reggae, that fusion is a big part of my life for sure.
Nice.
Yeah.
I got Sugar Ray. Sugar Ray fucking had Super Cat on the album. I don't give a fuck. That made that record dope for that one reason.
So people don't know this about Sugar Ray. I'm gonna give you some Sugar Ray factoids.
See?
You didn't know you
Okay.
were getting Sugar Ray factoids before the frosted tips and their first album was a punk album.
No, I believe that.
And it was a hard core punk album, and it was called like Milk and Brownies, but it was like hardcore. And when I first heard them, I was like, loving that music because SoCal punk scene. I grew up in Hermosa Beach area, so Pennywise and stuff. But then they kind of got into that Sublimey, California kind of No Doubt-ish kind of vibe, Smash Mouth, those types of bands. So they got in. It's all right. They made some money.
They introduced people to Super Cat though.
There you go. That's true. That's true.
Okay, favorite food, last meal. What are you eating? What are you gonna have?
So my favorite meal, I have it on my birthday every year. My mom makes it for me. It is individual meatloafs, twice baked potatoes, like salad with more ranch than with more dressing than lettuce, and carrot cake. Like my mom's from Fort Wayne, Indiana, and I was a fat kid, so it was like butter, bacon, wrapped in it, deep fried it, dipped it. Like that's kind of my thing. So that down home food is, because I travel and get to eat a lot of great food, but I can't wait to get home and eat that like home cooking. It's like more of the soul food kind of stuff, for sure.
Totally.
So
I love it. That's a great answer. Favorite cartoon as a kid?
Ooh, favorite cartoon as a kid. Dude, you know what? I was not a big cartoon person. I don't watch a lot of cartoons. Like I never got into, you know what? I would say probably like G.I. Joe, He-Man, that type of stuff.
He-Man.
Like that stuff was definitely kind of going, but I didn't watch a lot of, like, I don't watch like The Simpsons or South Park and all that stuff. As a kid, I wasn't that into it, but I was definitely more into, I would say,
He-Man was like
Joe
after
style.
school. I remember He-Man and G.I. Joe were after school.
Yeah, for sure.
I get home from track practice before o'clock. I'd watch He-Man.
Yeah,
That's
I mean,
what
I
did.
definitely like had like the shirtless and swinging a battle axe and like, had the towel cape and all that kind of jumping off stuff, like all that standard destruction and ragey, angsty young boy. That was definitely me for sure. So
nice. What's your current exercise routine?
My current exercise routine, I'm very diligent in exercise. I am right now, I do probably something that's probably more akin to like high impact interval training, CrossFit, but I mix it up. Like today I just went on like a big brisk hour and 15-minute walk in Central Park. So, but I'm always exercising. I'm a real ADD kind of like spazzy kid, like real ADD, not the like people say it now.
Right.
I was like Ritalin in 1984 ADD kid. So if I don't exercise, I really have a hard time like just like shutting it down later. So
gotcha,
for sure.
Favorite comedian?
Ooh, favorite comedian. I would say either got to go Eddie Murphy or George Carlin. Those two are like
old school,
two very different styles, but definitely, I mean, Raw and that was like the first thing as like the language that I was listening to at 8 or 9 or 10. I was like inappropriate and like burned into the soul,
Of course.
Also, Eddie Murphy said that in his second special, he goes, you see a dude wearing leather gloves and rings over his leather gloves, he's on the edge. And that was what he had done in his second special. So that stuck with me at like 8 or 9 or 10 years old. I'm like, this dude is doing it. So it's cool.
Yeah, that's so funny. Brass knuckles.
Yeah, for real.
Man. Oh my God. Okay. You've traveled the world.
Yeah.
Who would you most like to have a bottle of wine with?
Ooh, that's always a good one. I would probably say somebody like a Dalai Lama.
I was gonna say,
you know what I mean? Like that sort of style.
You're drinking Lama.
Yeah.
You'd get all Bill Murray, and I'm like,
yeah.
Hey Lama. It's 100 Acre here. How about a little something extra?
I'm actually going to go a little different. I'm going to go like Ram Dass. So another type of guy who's sort of out there. I would just use the wine to get in there for my hour.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So, but yeah, I'm like anybody where it's going to be like good conversation. Like that's to me, that's the most potent oil in the world for me. So something like that.
Nice. Okay, Landon, my friend, now we're going to switch gears for just a second.
Okay.
We're going to get into the Proust questionnaire for just a moment.
Okay.
What is your favorite word?
Ooh, my favorite word is I'm actually going to I can't say my favorite word because you're going to ask my favorite curse word.
I am.
So I won't go with that. I would probably go with like luscious, something like that. You know what I mean? Like I'm into that, like a word that makes you feel something. It's like a feeling and something so luscious, I would say. It's also a good wine term.
It is a good wine term.
You know, it can be overused, but it's when it's right, it's right. So I'd say luscious.
You know, luscious, voluptuous. I love those wine terms, but you know, that's not popular wines. People want their natty wines. They want their austere wines.
Yeah, I'm like my new term for natural wine for people that go, "Ooh, this wine smells a little like baby feet." It's like, you ever got into like a close to a baby and done that? Because it's like weird thing to say. It's like, "Are you smelling my baby's feet?" Oh yeah, I'm trying to get a reference for a future natural wine. So that's part of the thing. We start using like really weird terminology. That's you know, you gotta fight fire with fire.
Exactly.
Okay. You know,
it's a war going on.
Yeah.
Between good wine.
It's a turf war. Okay. For the soul of the wine world, you know.
Okay, what is your least favorite word?
Shame. Shame.
Wow.
I would say that's a really tough word. They say that is the most powerful psychologically. That's the most powerful word to affect how you react to things. It's not joy. It's not this. Shame is very, very impactful. And for my life, it's was an impactful word.
I completely. I know. We could just do a whole podcast on that. Like when you think of like traditional religion and dogma, like it shames you, and like once, and then you're never good enough. It colors your life. Unless you learn how to work through it and understand.
Let's put it this way. I'm half Jewish, and I got the other half of my family. They have 9 Lutheran pastors that believe that if you were an Episcopalian, you were going to hell.
Yeah.
So being Jewish was like, oh, half of you ain't going to do it here.
Yeah.
So I grew up in a holy war. There was definitely some situations. So yeah, shame was definitely religious shame, but all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, and then
the rest of the stuff.
Just when I remember my mom saying you should be ashamed of yourself. What? Because I fucking did some shit a kid does.
Yeah. You know, it's like I can deal that you're mad at me.
Yeah.
I don't be like ashamed or like disappointed. Those types of stuff are like way worse than that type of deal. So that's
heavy shit for kids.
Yeah, for real.
All right. What turns you on?
You know, for me, what turns me on is passion, just in general. I mean, I don't give a shit what you're passionate about. Just be passionate. When somebody's really feeling something, you know, that's the magnetism in life. So that really turns me on. And I'm actually, even when people are passionate about something I'm not interested in, I'm more interested in that because I'm like, okay, there's some jam in here. There's some meat on the bone. And so, and I also feel like there's a lot of fake passionate people.
Yeah.
People are very excited about stuff, but like passion is like a spiritual cellular connection to something. It's not like what you post or what you're the loudest about. It's like the thing that does like turn you on. You know what I mean? That's so I would say passion. Yeah.
Love it. What is your least? No, I said what turns you off. Blah, blah, blah. Haven't even been drinking, guys.
Let's get to work.
I
got a little 15.5 alcohol
I
banger
know.
right
We
here.
got some bangers. We got two.
Let's go.
Okay.
Let's go here.
What turns you off?
What turns me off? I would say certainly closed-mindedness. You know, and moreover, turns me off is, you know, people that have their minds made up about almost anything. You know, it's one of the great questions I talk to people about, and when I connect with this, tell me the last time you had your mind changed. And if you can't think of something, that's letting you know something about what's happening in your world and in your mind if you're just locked in. And right now, it seems like everybody's got it locked in, and we need to be locked out on a lot of these feelings and try to like open up. You know, that's a big deal for me.
No, and you know, it's people don't even like. I'm big on looking up words.
Yeah. Yeah,
to this day, I'm like, I've been using words for you, and I'm like, what do I know what that means? Like, I'll say
and like the
shit.
root of a word, and those types of stuff,
So when you look up liberal, I don't know why it means to be open-minded. Why is that a bad thing?
Yeah.
Like literally, liberal, you're a liberal. You mean I can think objectively about things and weigh them?
Yeah. Well, like an idea that like the term being progressive means bad, or also conservative.
Yeah.
Conserving something good is good, but conserving something trash is not good. So you know, that's the big deal. I mean, don't even get me going on politics. We can. I'm down. I love to get down. So there's nothing off limits for me. This is a no holds barred, fully engaged situation here on the Black Wine Guy Experience.
That's how we do.
Yeah.
All right. What sound or noise do you love?
My French Bulldog, Siggy, he's like a snorting, kind of like farting. Like it's just like,
tutor, right?
there's like nothing that's cute about it, but
Yeah.
it's like great.
like,
Everything is a lot of work for him, and but he's intense though. So it's a lot of work, and it'd be easier just not to do it for him, but he's doing it. So, and my fiance's had to like live with him now, and so she's like understanding that the stank and the slobber is the joy. Without that, there is no joy in that. So I would say that type of thing right there. So
that's what's up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Also music too. You can get. I love music, but that's a lot of sound. I would say that's a lot of sounds.
All right. So what sound or noise do you hate?
Ooh. I don't know. That's a good one. I gotta be thinking quick here. I would say like something like moist, like squishy moist, like the word moist. Like moist is also a weird word.
All right,
is that not original? Okay,
no,
moist.
It's not. No,
the sound of one hand clapping. It's the worst sound ever.
That's not. No, that's not the point. The point is, it's interesting.
Is it a sound? It's more of a feeling, right?
Like,
it's like an essence.
No,
You're moist.
I mean,
it's a feeling.
Well, there is a. I mean, okay. My producer loves this. Okay, so think to the end of Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Yes. Okay.
On the bus.
Yeah.
The girl with the snotty nose.
Yeah.
And she's like moist can be like that snot. She's like want a gummy bear. It's all soft.
Yeah.
And moist.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
There's like two words.
And there was that noise they were making when she was like going in her pocket like.
There's like two words. I'd go moist and the word ointment. It has a weird sound and feeling. So we're in that vein there.
But I would say that if we extrapolate the number of shows I've had and like how many guests don't like the moist.
Yeah.
I've either learned something about the world or something about the wine world.
Yeah, for sure.
But it's probably the world because it's just a microcosm, right? So probably like...
Is moist ever good? I guess for a cake, if it's
moist, it's good.
Huh? But if like something's dewy, it's kind of moist, that's not good. So it can go a lot of ways.
Okay,
Apparently it's a perspective thing.
We have
going to
go
with
podcast to do. We got to move on from this.
We're going to go to words.
That's my fault.
We're wordsmiths. We're wordsmiths, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, we're bending them to our will as we speak.
Exactly. I just open my mouth and magic comes out.
Tell me about it. I tell my fiance that all the time. She is not entirely on the same. She doesn't.
My
agree
wife's not on the same page either. Right. But like,
yeah.
I believe it.
I'm with you.
All right. What is your favorite curse word?
I'm definitely I would say not too crazy on the like. It's fuck, but it's more of like fuck.
Yeah,
because a very long, drawn out sort of situation. I do love, there was a comedian, who he's an English guy and they like to use the C word a lot.
Yeah.
And he's like, how come that's not a big deal? But he goes, you guys are offended by that word, but you're not offended by the word motherfucker. Like motherfucking is terrible.
Exactly.
It's like really, really bad.
Exactly.
Like no, it's almost never a good thing.
Right.
But you guys are good with that word. So
you don't even want your dad fucking.
Yeah, right. It's like, yeah, no, that was really rough for me.
If you really think about it.
Yeah, I'm changing it to motherfucker. I'm adding something to the fuck. So it's motherfucker is like, I like it, but I'm also repulsed by it completely. So.
Did have one guest who the C word was her, and I was like, and it was great because she's a woman, obviously, and she was like, it's really bad. I'm like, but I was like, the British, that's like they use it differently.
Yeah.
You watch all those Guy Ritchie films. And all that,
he's a good word. The best cursors, though, there's just no question, are the Italians.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
No rompa de cazzo, puttana,
fanculo,
stronzo. And it's like, they mean that stuff,
Exactly. Like, you're watching a football game, like even Italian women, dude from France scores.
Yeah.
Stronzo.
My first girlfriend's mother called me a stronzo de tutti stronzo, and I didn't know what that was. I was like, yes. Ooh, what is that? Like
he's like, I'm strong, man.
Is that like manicotti? Is that like some kind of Italian dish? And she's like, you've just proved it completely. So at 15, 16, she was a sweet lady. That was not the lovingest term possible. So it's all good. Add that to the list of stuff I've been called. Okay, it's a long list. Okay.
All right. So what profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
I would have loved to be I would probably say like a motivational speaker. I love speaking. I love getting people excited and very passionate. I do that in my life a bit now, but I would do it in a way that was more about like not business related, just more about sort of finding your purpose in life. You know what I mean? That would be something. And you know what? Maybe that's something I will do.
Yeah, I mean, you're never done.
You know,
you're
not done.
Man.
I'm a
You're
young
man.
I'm a young buck.
You're a young buck.
Don't let the gray and the goatee
man.
fool you here. This is just some salt in my flavoring up my life
exactly.
here. So,
exactly.
Yeah.
You know what? This is so cool. Look at the engineer we have.
Oh, the
Braves.
dog?
Yeah, man. Oh, he's like intently watching.
Yes. He's cueing us right now.
totally
Things
is.
are, he's in full control of what's going on.
Look, he's like checking out the podcast and shit.
Oh, that's so funny.
All right. What profession would you not like to do?
Oof. I would probably say politician.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Because you know what? People need to understand something. Like a politician has to make deals. That's a part of politics. It's making deals. It's trade-offs. You know.
Yeah, that part of it is not the thing that I'm not down for. Like I think in life you need life is about compromising, and we do those types of things. I think the concept now in the current political where you have to like pander to groups to get dough.
Yeah,
that's the part where it's like, how can you be doing what's right when you need the cash? Like it's a system that's just set up for trouble.
Well,
like
it is.
You know what I mean? So
but I was like, that's my point. Like I got to say this shit over here, then I got to say this shit. I got to say this shit to the money people. I got to say this shit to you to get me to vote, and then I have to find a way to bring it together. Anyway.
Yeah. So that would
we got to move. We'll do. This will be 40 questions with Landon by the time we're done.
Hey, we're adding some extra flavor.
So it is. Listen. We love this.
If you wanted talking, I was the guy you wanted. Okay, if you wanted like stoic, deep thoughts, I can do that.
No,
but that's not really my jam right now.
I had that guest on already.
Yeah. I already had some lunch at Nougatine. I had a little champagne, a little lubrication, a little Merceau.
He came in hot.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Just a half bottle. Just you don't want to get too much.
No. Listen.
As we do.
That's how we do. And then lastly. If heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
Oh, yes. I should know this one because this is how he always ends that sucker. You did good work. You did more for others than you did for yourself. Like that's a real thing for me. So that would be, hopefully that's the ticket, that I did and got me there. And so I'd love to have that validated on the way in. So
nice.
For sure.
Nice. All right, everybody, this was fun. If you want more Landon, and I know you do, make sure you tune into.
All you can eat.
That's right. It's a buffet.
All you can drink, I guess.
Yeah. It's all you can eat, drink. You're at home. You're enjoying this. So tune into our episode. Until next time, it's your boy MJ. Peace. Hey, everybody. What's up? This is your boy MJ, and welcome to the Black Wine Guy Experience. My guest today is Sommelier, Wine Sales and Marketing Phenom, and Chief Revenue Officer for 100 Acres Wine Group, Landon Patterson. A native of Southern California, Landon began his wine career as a sommelier in Las Vegas, working with the venerable Wolfgang Puck at his signature restaurants on the Strip. While there, he built a passion and a strong platform of knowledge focused on international luxury wines, with a specialty in wines from Italy and Spain. Landon's love of wine and natural ability to impart that passion to consumers, especially luxury customers, quickly led him into the world of sales and marketing. Over the last 20 years, his deep knowledge of international and luxury wines seamlessly translated into working as a sales and marketing leader with small U.S. family-owned wine producers. Landon became a member of the 100 Acre team at the beginning of 2013. Over the past 8 years, he has managed all aspects of sales and marketing, which work hand in hand in driving revenue, and expanded the 100 Acre portfolio of wines into 35 countries on 4 continents. And when he's not traveling the world for work, he's also a dog daddy to his beloved French Bulldog, Sigmund, and spending time with his lovely fiance. What's her name again?
Sathya.
With Sathya. Welcome, Landon. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
I'm going to add it in the next hour. We're just going to slowly work it in, Also, I'm very big in doing philanthropy work. My MC, I donate a lot of my MC time for charity. So that's something I figured put this big mouth to work and make some
money for a good cause.
Absolutely. I'm all about that.
All right. So, Landon, what are we drinking tonight?
world premiere. You got to do that, like just this just in. So
wait, hold on. It's like
yeah,
okay.
yeah, it's like the the teletyper.
Yeah,
the thing, whatever that kind of thing
was.
was
Called the telegraph.
Yeah, telegraph.
Yeah,
some
yeah.
kind of something like hot on the
or
wire.
Or one of those old World War II movies with like beep beep beep. You know, like
yeah,
the
some
old
kind of
radar sounds.
Yeah, like ham radio or something. So, I am back in New York after 2 long years. It was about 18 months. It felt like 10 years being away. And so I'm here for our release of our 100 Acre 2018s. And so I brought the very first bottle of the Kaylee Morgan and Arc Vineyards, and I just tasted them for the first time as well. So this is straight off. This is hot for me as well. So
these are like the first 2 bottles.
Yeah, these are the first 2 bottles. I mean, Jason's a Trip, our owner winemaker. He doesn't allow any barrel sampling. He doesn't allow no one but him tastes the wines. I've been with him for almost 11 years now. No barrel thief has got into a barrel. He doesn't pull samples and taste them. And he's like, dude, we don't touch these wines.
So the critics get them. They like Jeb can't come in and
no, we do none of that.
Okay.
We do none of that. We actually several years ago, Jason stopped doing barrel samples because he felt that isn't what the wine is. It's sort of like some version of the wine. And also, a lot of winemakers, I won't out anybody, but they would put together a composite.
No, motherfucker stack barrels.
No, dude.
Everybody knows that.
Well, they'd put composite blends together that was like the best possible.
Of course, yeah, they stack a barrel.
You'd end up seeing these and a wine would get 99 in the barrel and then 95 in the bottle. It's like, what happened in a year? It got worse?
Right.
So I think Jason felt that was a little bit disingenuous, but there was also a little bit, he sort of treats wine like a souffle in the oven. You can't open it and check it out. Like if you open it, the souffle falls. Like patience is a virtue. And he says this all the time. He goes, my greatest strength is resisting. He's like, you don't think I want to touch it? You don't think I want to taste it? I want to fiddle with it. I want to tinker with it. He's like, it's done. I made the wine. There's nothing I'm going to do when it's in a barrel to make it better. It's like on the journey. So let's be patient. And so for me, this is always a fun day for me because, I get to try the vintage. I'm very blessed to try these wines a lot.
Sure.
I mean, I do it for a living, but you do get tired. You kind of taste the same vintage over and over again. You're like, okay, that's cool. But when you try the new vintage, there's always kind of like, ooh, it's like Christmas. It's like, ooh, what's this going to be like? And so it's fun for me, and then this first to do it in New York also, which is
and to do it on the BWG.
Yes, absolutely. I told you breaking news. Yeah,
exactly.
No doubt. We're all about that. So.
I know, and that is dope that it's in New York. I had posted on IG somewhere. I was doing a live and I had mentioned New York's like the #1 wine city in the world. Someone was like, how is that? I'm like, because everybody comes through here. Everything comes through here, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, sure, there's amazing wines in Paris and Spain, all around the world, but
But you can't get them all there.
That's what I'm saying. You can't get them all there.
In Paris, you can get all the dope French stuff, but you're not getting...
You're not getting Spanish shit. You're not, so that's the thing is you can get them all here,
Yeah.
That's why the UN is here. That's why we had a restaurant called Windows on the World, which sold more wine because it was literally to have wines. They've been making wine in Uruguay and Chile for way more than and they had bottles of those at Windows on the World. The whole idea was to bring this thing together. So that's what's cool about this.
Well, you also got to say it's the closest big city to Europe too. So
and that's
it's
it.
like it's closer to it's 8 hours across the pond situation. So.
The wine comes over on the boats, Port Elizabeth probably.
Yeah.
And then it gets on trucks and it goes over the West Coast.
Yeah.
Right? That's how it rolls.
When I was a young buck, I chose Italian wine. You were saying when you did my opening, like Italian wine is a big passion of mine. I started in Italian wine. And there's a great producer, Silvio Yerman. So Yerman wines, he's from Alto Adige. These wines are epic white wines. And I tasted them as a young somm and was into them. And I came to New York at a tasting and there was like, at a restaurant had 5 wines from him that I had never seen before. I was like Gewürztraminers, Blaufränkisch's, Pinot Neros, and I was like, dude, can I get these in California? He's like, nah. They bring like a mixed palate for just the nerds, or you got to go to Alto Adige.
Yeah,
so it was like, and that was what I think was such a cool part of New York was the discovery of stuff, and if you can bring it here and sell it, then you probably got a chance to sell it somewhere else. But you're going to live and die, in like, a 5-mile radius, and this is going to decide the future of a wine. That's true in a lot of ways, especially for those types of wines.
Yeah, that's really cool. So let's start at the beginning. Let us begin. What, where, why, and when. So you're from Southern California.
Yes, sir.
Summertime in the LBC, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you grew up in Long Beach, right?
Yeah,
Or
so I actually
what
grew up.
parts?
I actually grew up in Hermosa Beach, which is as a kid. So I was sort of in the South Bay area, and then when I was 17, South Bay is like
So
Hermosa,
you got
Manhattan,
and
Yes,
Redondo.
Yeah, sort of like 30 minutes south of Santa Monica, right
Yep.
on the water. You know, it's like Hermosa Beach is like a stoner beach town. I mean, the biggest store in Hermosa Beach at that time was a head shop, and it was like the biggest. It's called Greco's, and it was like where you bought your Bob Marley poster, your bong, and your tie dye, and which was cool. It was kind of scummy, but like it was affluent, but like scummy, and that was great. I was into that, a lot of all that, and then I moved to Long Beach at 17 when I started college. And Long Beach is just what it's about, man. Long Beach is, it's kind of in a weird way like New York. It's got a lot of like boroughs. It's got like regions and Funky Fourth, Belmont Shore, East Side, Bixby Knolls, Downtown Pike, and each one of them's got a lot of its own flavor. So when I started going to college there, I just met an unbelievably diverse group of people there. So I would really, although I'm from Hermosa, Long Beach has been my home base. I live there now, and I'll probably die there. So
Nice.
Yeah.
So let's back up a little bit. So, actually listened to you on another podcast, and like you left home at 16. Like what was like? So and I heard you kind of like had moved around a lot as a kid.
Yeah.
Like so what like. Kind of walk me through just kind of quickly like what it was like growing up in a home where there was turmoil.
Yeah, man. I grew up in this. I just had a crazy life. There was a lot in my family. There was a lot of substance issues. There was a lot of mental health issues. Just a lot of crazy stuff. Like from birth, it started on day one. Like he came out of the womb into the crib, and it just started getting crazy like that. And so, I went to 9 different schools. So from kindergarten to senior, I went to 9 different schools. I was moving around a lot. I was getting, I never really got to know anybody very well. I was like constantly the new kid. I had a lot of learning disabilities, and I had a lot of weight issues as a kid. So I was just like savagely bullied. So my young life was just very, I was just like always kind of proving myself. I was never part of anything, you know what I mean? And I was like always searching for that. And so, as a young kid, although there was, certainly some love in my family, it was kind of like, you ain't living until you had like, the police called on Thanksgiving 4 years in a row. It was kind of that kind of thing, although I have an amazing family now and life is much better for them. But in that time, it was just kind of hectic, and, there was no wine in my life. Actually, it was like cheap beer and other stuff. You know what I mean? So I didn't grow up like the fact that I work now for, one of the most prestigious wines in the world, and I get to eat all that. I grew up with like none of that. The antithesis of that, so, I'm like moving up in the world, and it's an interesting journey in that regard. So,
Yeah. I find it's very interesting because I think most people who are in wine and in hospitality, more on the sales and marketing side, like didn't grow up with it. Like it's one thing, I mean, if you're a Mondavi kid, you grew up on, a winery and you grew up around wine and then, some people, I don't know if you'll get over and see Paul Greco at Terroir because they don't sell. Yeah. But like, his family had a restaurant, right? So but there are a few people we've had. But most people who are in it, like, it's like you said, it's like, first of all, just the nature of, and I was talking to someone who was like, understanding service versus servitude. But like, and wine just isn't just a thing. It's not, and particularly early American. So I'm 53, right? So like, and there was wine commercials, Mateus Rosé, and and some other. What was the other rosé?
Lancers.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yep,
it
Lancers.
was like Blue Nun,
you had
all that kind of stuff.
Blue Nun.
That was kind of the jam.
That was the jam.
The Carlo Rossi,
that
type of stuff. Like,
but even then, like there was like no wine in my house. Like
only
my mom would have. My mom would have like
drank that. Like
Schaefer
my grandma
and
would
Peanuts,
drink like bad white Zinfandel or like a Juggo, whatever. So she was down to drink and didn't really care what was in it. But yeah.
But in all fairness, and you probably know this now, I later found out like that Carlo Rossi Hardy Burgundy in the 70s. that was like all Old Vine Zinfandel. Like, it was like 80% Old Vine Zinfandel. It was like field blends. They were like giving it away, man.
When one of the great Zinfandel producers in California, Sagacio,
Yep.
their kids, like the dad had like the bomb Zinfandel vines, and in the 70s and 80s, it was like there was no Zinfandel market, so. Yep. That white Zinfandel was, if they would have made red wines from it, would have been epic stuff. And now they make epic wine from the same vines.
Right.
Like nothing changed. So yeah, it's amazing how perspective can change. You're selling like a $2 bottle, and today it's a $50, $100 bottle. Same vines.
I know.
So.
It's bananas.
Yeah.
So what's it called? What do they call it? SAD. So standard American diet, kind of growing up.
Yeah, no.
Wonder Bread.
Yeah, no. I was a fat kid, like straight up. I looked like Chunk from the Goonies. I grew up. I had like the proper Jufro, like as a Jewish kid. I had like they used to ask me like they used to ask my mom, did you perm his hair? Like I had that kind of like you see my hair now and it's straight, but there's so much gunk in there. It's like spackled. You know what I mean? So, but I had that like proper volume. You know what I mean? So that was the legit thing. So both my parents were kind of not in the home, and so there was a lot of McDonald's, a lot of fat kid food, certainly not a high culinary situation. I mean, I never ate fish until I was 20, I don't think. I never even had like a fish stick. Like I've come to think of it like
that's probably not the worst thing,
yeah.
but still, I know what you're saying.
I mean,
like,
vegetables for us was like French fries.
Yeah.
Like that's a vegetable, right?
Yeah.
Or like fried something. That was like as close as you get. So I just like definitely had like nothing but a fat kid diet. I look at my mom now as I'm like in relatively good shape. I'm like, Mom, you did this to me. That was your damn fault. Like you didn't think about it. She's like, this is what I know. This is all I know. So it's sweet. But I was like, the pre-diabetes is a problem at 22. So not too bad.
So you left home at 16. What was that like? What prompted you just like, because that's like some serious shit.
It was sort of like you had a choice. Like you could like live in shit or get out of shit. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like that was kind of the decision you make. You kind of decide like, dude, there's something more. Like it can't be worse. Like if I go out and do my thing. One of the good things that was really lucky for me as a kid was I learned how to make money really early. Like I was that hustler kid who was like, I remember there was one of the houses we had had fruit trees, and my mom was like, oh, you got to clean it up and da-da-da. And I was like, all right. I just picked all the fruit and sold it door to door. So early on, I kind of had that like hustler spirit because I realized that if I wanted it, I had to go get it myself. So at 16, I kind of knew that I could do it. I slept on a futon mat and I rented it in someone's house and went to high school and finished high school and signed all my own notes and did all my own stuff. And I will tell you, as traumatic as that sounds, it was magic for me as a 16-year-old because like knowing that I could live and like support myself at a very young age. That's not a lot of kids right now feel that. Like they're just like on the teat till they're 35.
Dude.
You know what I mean?
No, that's hardcore. I love what you said. You said, like you're like, I made some money, right? Like that's like I know I got family members, kids like quit jobs after 2 weeks, man. Like they talk about you disrespecting me. I'm like, what the hell are you talking about?
Yeah. I mean, like, kids are changing jobs like every 15 minutes. And, for me, it was like, my first job, like proper job, was like a Boston Market. It was like a chicken joint, and then I worked my way up and was like a waiter or a busboy at Outback Steakhouse. I was making $30 a shift, and that was $5 for gas for a week. So that was living well. And I was like, okay, so if I pick up another shift, I got 30 more bucks. And then it was like, so I learned that really early, and so I think the hustler spirit was a huge part of my early existence. And so although that was traumatic in one regard, it was the most liberating thing ever. And I really realized early on, especially when I started college, that I just had something that my other friends didn't have because they were just dependent on their parents, and they didn't, so that was a big part of my life, in a good way.
So early on, you said, quote, you said you were bullied aggressively. Mm-hmm. So like you move out at 16, like why did you keep going to school? Like, and you said ADD, like real ADD, not like.
Yeah, for real. Like, like Ritalin at 6, 7 years old, like that type of stuff. As I was saying on the other podcast that I had done, I knew what a loser was. You know what I mean? Like, I knew that it wasn't that, like, I saw losers and I'm like, okay, I can be that or I can not be that. Like, part of that independence let me know that I was in control of my life, you know? And, you know, one of the things, my grandparents were, you know, immigrants from, you know, Jewish immigrants from Russia. They had 6th grade educations and, you know, they built a life for themselves. And so I knew that, like, you know, I didn't want to, I knew I wasn't going to the fanciest school. I wasn't going to be the most X and Y, but I was going to finish everything, you know? I would say one of the great skills I have is that I can take a punch.
Yep.
Like, most people can't take a punch.
Yep.
I'm like, I will get back up. You're going to have to kill me.
Yep.
Like, I'm going to keep getting up in life and in spirituality and my work. And so that early resiliency is like sort of take the negative and the positive. It was a huge part of, like, shaped who I am. And, you know, there's some negatives to it, but man, like, what a gift, you know, it's like to rise again, you know, on a new day, every day. It's like, okay, I got that, you know.
That's what's up. You should be a motivational speaker. You got me thinking about, because I can bring everything back to a movie, because everything.
Yeah, for sure.
Because movies,
a movie,
you know, everything's a movie, right?
Yeah.
So Rocky Balboa, the one where he's like, he hasn't fought, he's old, he's got the restaurant, his son's not talking to him.
Oh,
like,
yeah, I know what you're about to say.
You know the scene?
Oh,
Yeah, he's like, life will beat you down if you let it, but it ain't
Yeah.
about how hard you can hit, it's about how many times you can get hit and get back up.
Yeah.
And that's the truth, because, you know, and I think I just, like, when you said, like, you know, words like, okay, loser, right? There's ways, like, you know, there's Beck, I'm a loser, baby. Like, but like, when you're saying it, like, there's a difference. I think people go, like, let's use sports, right? I don't even know who's playing anything right now, but I've been watching so much sports, right?
Yeah,
okay,
right.
but let's just say the Yankees lost last night.
Yeah.
They lost. Okay, the loser is the person who can't pick themselves back up.
Yeah, right.
You can lose.
Yeah.
You can lose, but you get back up. And, you know, people go, and then, you know, a lot of losers are now lost. There was something so much riding on it, but that being said, everybody, life is fucking hard. And if you're listening to the Landon story just so far, life's hard for everybody, though.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, and you know what they say, it's like a Rocky thing or just in life. The only thing you can control is your effort. You know what I mean? You know, it's coming back to, like, Stoics. You know, they were saying the biggest thing, only thing you control is your perception.
That's what I would say too. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, you know, I was reading a book before this called The Way of Zen, and it's by Alan Watts, who's a, you know,
Alan Watts,
you know, great dude, philosophical guy. And, you know, he was talking about there was a story about a Zen master, like a student, and the student was very sad, and he goes to the master and he goes, "Master, I'm so lonely. I don't have any friends here. I have absolutely nothing." And the master goes, "Oh, well, you have absolutely nothing. You're all alone." He goes, "Okay, close your eyes." And he goes, "Tell me what you hear." And he goes, "I hear a bird." And he goes, "Okay, what else do you hear?" He goes, "I hear a river." "Okay, what else do you hear?" "I hear a bug." "Wow, you're surrounded by so much for someone who's so lonely." You know what I mean? It's the perception of how we go, you know. And I think also sort of early on as a kid, what I didn't do is I didn't, like, say, "Oh, woe is me, I got a shit, you know, deal." You know what I mean? Like, I just kind of was like, all right, this is what it is. Like, no one's gonna cry for me, you know.
I mean, it's just the reality. There are better hands that are dealt in life, and there's people who have winning hands, who are dealt winning hands, and then fuck it up.
No, for sure.
and
I mean,
there's, you know.
It's like you say losers. It's like, I know a lot of rich people that are losers. It's their approach. It's how they process things. It's how they
look at life.
Yeah, they live it.
How they move through the world.
Yeah, 100%. So it's a trip in that regard.
You know?
So yeah,
no, that's I love it. He's a thinking man.
Yes, you know, I wasn't always that way, but it was definitely.
No, you're always thinking, just weren't aware of it.
Yeah, no, for sure. Well, or you know. A lot of times when you're young, you're just doing it and you don't really know why. You kind of, like, don't have a cerebral understanding of why you're doing something. And I think that's, you know, as I became older in my life and in my career, you know, I was able to kind of put a point on it, you know, and that's a big deal. So
yeah. And then something you said, like, about school, you said you were going to finish it. You know what I mean? And I just also think school is inherently school's kind of fucked up because they like to label kids.
Yeah.
And then they label them and then wonder why they're struggling because of what it's doing to self-esteem. But like, you know, like I was someone who I don't take notes. I don't take notes.
Yeah.
I learn by listening and then
I'm
doing.
The same. Yeah.
And so like that was a point of contention with some teachers. Like, you're not paying attention. Like, I'm like, no respect for learning styles.
Well, you know, too, it was, you know, you're basically, you know, for me, because I was ADD, I was the same. I couldn't write, I couldn't read, but I could listen. I had a crazy sick memory. So I was an auditory learner. So if you put me in a place where it was going to be like a lecture hall, when I got to college and I got into lecture halls, I was slaying it, you know, because I could remember it. I didn't need to take the notes, you know, and, you know, that's a skill that you end up, you know, bringing on later in life. You know, I think one of the things though that became, you know, a little bit of part of my story was I was obsessed with proving people wrong though. Like as an early child and as a young man, it was like my career, my life. I was like, dude, I'm going to prove all those fools wrong. I never talked to a single person the day after I graduated high school. Never saw anybody again. But in my soul, I'm like, when they see me, I'm going to have the whip. I'm going to have the wine. I'm going to have the life. I'm going to have the hot chick. I'm going to have all these types of things. And so I became just like savage about my career and about like achieving things. And, you know, that had its drawbacks, you know, for sure. Now in my life, I'm much more sort of deeper spiritual understanding of why I do things. But that was sort of what, like in my 20s, I was like a savage animal, you know, in my 30s as well. So,
okay. So, you know, and, you know, I'd like this conversation because we've had so many people, we've had a few people on the show who like, you know, struggled in school and they're like crushing it in business and life right now. You know what I mean? I mean, I don't know if you probably watched Gary Vaynerchuk and he hated school and he sucked at school.
Yeah.
He's going to be a fucking billionaire one day. You know, we had this kid, Thacker Baker Briggs, on, and he dropped out of school basically when he was like 12, 13, you know? And because he knew he liked to cook. So he's like, I could work in restaurants, or he's like, well, I couldn't go to the CIA because I didn't graduate high school.
Yeah,
but
right,
like,
for sure.
But like
they didn't have like a GAD get in for that.
No,
like,
you know.
I guess you had to like show that you could basically read and write before you could cook.
Exactly.
So.
But and there's just a lot of different stories of
sure.
people who were very successful, who school wasn't for them. But I kind of had the same. Like I had a little bit. I turned around in college. So, like you mentioned, you went to college and you were down in Long Beach. And you were meeting different people from different kind of sections of the city.
Yeah, for sure.
So like what was it? What was it about college you think that really not really turned it around, but like gave you more fuel? Because you always said you had the drive. You know, what gave you more fuel?
What changed about college for me was the day I went to college, nobody knew me. They didn't know my trauma. They didn't know my past. They didn't know my life. So I kind of became my real self. Like, you know, people didn't have all this preconceived notions about myself. They didn't know. And so I was, and people were like, oh, dude, this guy's funny. Oh, this guy knows how to party. He knows how to do X. He knows how to do Y. And so I really blossomed in a massive way. I really changed a tremendous amount of who I am. And so it was amazing. And all of my friends, my clique, my crew, I met in the first week of college, and I'm still best friends with them today. I'm best friends with their wives. I'm, you know, godfather to their children. I've got all these different pieces. So it's amazing how things changed, you know, and how you can shed that skin and be something more, you know? So.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, you said something earlier, like just when you wake up every day is a new day. But that ability, like it was like a reinvention of yourself, you know, because like, you know, at my high school, it was like, you know, I was like, I don't know, man. I got teased a little bit and shit. And, like, you know, I left high school thinking I was corny, you know what I mean, to be honest. And I went to college and they're like, oh, no, you're dope, dude. You know what I mean? Like, nobody knows, you know, when you get teased in the 6th grade and you're crying or whatever, you know, in school, you're 12 years old.
Well, and I don't think people realize, like, when I say bullying, I'm talking, like, cried my eyes out every day
I know,
a decade. Like ass beat, like chased and run.
I think bullying's bad, but people don't know what bullying used to be.
Well, a lot of the reason I went to so many schools was because the kids were so brutal to me. My parents were worried about me.
Wow.
You know what I mean? So it was a trip. I mean, some of it was because they were just weird people and they had a lot of stuff going on. But like, you know, your kid comes home and is like crying his eyes out every day. You're like, you know, okay, we'll just change schools. And you just realize like, you know, also like today there's a lot of awareness about bullying. Like my dad just was like, just beat their ass. Like he was like, that was his whole move.
It was like,
that one day I remember I was like 9 years old. He taught me how to like punch a kid in the nose. He's like, let me show you. He goes, look, if you get expelled or something, just break one nose and no one's going to get to you again. That was his advice, you know, and like if you gave that advice today, like just put them in the hospital and they'll never mess with you again. That is excellent advice though. Let me tell you, you don't want to hurt somebody long term, but breaking their nose, they're not going to die.
No, exactly.
Okay. It's just, you know,
and it's a good place because it bleeds a lot. It makes a big scene.
And hey, don't push me because I'm close to the edge. You know what I mean? Like you did mess with the kids. So, you know, but all of those experiences, you know, as a young man and have changed everything for me in who I am. And I had to come to terms with the joys and the pains of it all. But like, you know, in the end, I wouldn't change a damn thing. Yeah. You know, my life, you know, if I was to, I never went to my 10-year graduation or 20-year. If I went to my 20-year, dude, I've been to 60 countries. You know, I joke, I go, I made breakfast in bed for Anthony Bourdain. You know, I've like met kings and queens, tasted the best foods in the world. It's like, what are you doing? Yeah. You know, oh, okay, you got 2.2 kids and it's pretty boring and you know, you hate each other and that's a good life. Like I'm sipping it and I'm just at the teat of life right now because I just savoring all that stuff is it's so awesome. It's dope.
And you know what? And I think there's so many things that get a bad rep, but you should celebrate. I know the Arc is this wine. The Arc is the banger for me right now.
So what's trippy to like hard change is we're now tasting the wines. You have to also remember these bottles were just bottled, right? So there's couple months of bottling. This wine's 34 months in oak. Like we should decant this, give this a lot of time. Like these wines, when you're tasting wines like this, like if they put out on the first date, like this is putting out before the appetizer. Exactly. You know what I mean? And at our price point, you better be getting the full Monty early. You know what I mean? Like 20 years, 30 years. Okay, it could be better in 20, 30 years, but I need I need a little sip now and make sure that life is good for me, you know? At these price points, like,
and you know what? Exactly. And a lot of people, I don't know. I'm 50. I speak in generalizations.
Yeah, for sure. You know,
a lot of people though, and you know this because you're in the business. Like, who the fuck buys a wine? Like, I think it's so presumptuous to buy wine that you're gonna have to drink in like 25 years. Yeah, there's a lot of presumption in that.
Well, and this is a very American
thing,
but it's changing also in the world. I mean, there was a reason why Barolo needed 40 years to drink it because the wines had all, you know, old oak. The wines had a lot of tannin. The way the wines were made, it was like it took 30 years for the acid to calm down. Mm-hmm. Now with, you know, everyone says global warming, which is a total factor, but the technology now, the oak, the inoculations, the way the fermentation, the way the technology is getting there. So, you know, the other adage, and Jason said this all the time, he goes, if you tell me it's crap now, but it's going to be great in 10 years, it's like, no, it's crap.
I can't believe that either.
It should be different. It could be good, but it shouldn't be like absolutely, or don't release it. Right. That's why our wines are released later because it's like, we aged it for you. It's ready to go. Right. Like we're not just doing that because it's more expensive. It's like, we're doing that because the wine has to be like in the zone very early on, you know? Yeah. So.
And we'll get, you know, I bounce around, but inside the conversation of like, and then there's the whole, why is this so high in alcohol? Like there's the under 13% mafia out there now.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, and okay, so this is 15.5, but for instance, I had a Friday night, I had a 16% 2013 Shout Enough to Pop Isabel Ferrando Columbus.
Yeah,
there was no fucking heat on that wine. It was amazing.
I mean,
it was harming. I was like, but there are people who are like 60% alcohol. You know, when I post something, someone goes, "Well, that's high in alcohol." I don't even respond to that. I'm like, bro, you haven't had 100
I just had a bottle. I just had a bottle last night of Nicolas Joly. You know, his top producer, Sommelier. You know, and it was the Clos the V Clos, and it was 15% as a white wine, and that wine is just celebrated. So you're telling me like, if we had a 15% wine from Cali is white, you'd be like, this is trash. So, alcohol. I mean, everything is like we're looking to hate.
Yep.
It's like really wine is, it's about perspective. It's about approach, and also it's about quality of fruit. Like when the fruit is just bomb,
right.
The alcohol, it's all going to be, all sins are forgiven when you're really dealing with like the sacred cluster.
Mm-hmm.
It's when you've got like a lot of wine and a lot of clusters and a lot of stuff where you're having to do that. That's where you're not having that sort of density and complexity in the grapes themselves. So anyway, yeah, I deal with that all the time. I mean, one of the great joys I love about my company is, 100 Acre right now, our demand for the wines, and I think the consistency of the quality has been so strong. But when I first started bringing the wines out 10 years ago, dude, in New York, it ain't easy, dude. You think it's natural wines and stuff. It's like Somms are like into French wines. They're into very cool climate wines. Yep. It's like, and I love that stuff too, as well. I appreciate it.
Me too. That's
but I'm not like in one zone. I'm
right. I can understand the varietal correctness and why and the sense of place, but like, I'm not. Like you said, like I respect it, but like a lot of buyers, there's a generation that's like, they'll just look at the alcohol percent and they won't even just on that.
You're telling me Del Forno or Quintarelli Amarone would be better at 13% alcohol
exactly,
than 16%? It's like,
right,
no,
right.
that's not the jam,
Right.
And I think there's like, it's different strokes for different folks. I mean, like, also these wines are not like 100 Acre isn't like a Tuesday day wine. You know what I mean? Like it's a more, these wines are like.
It is for me.
Yeah, no. Number one, I like to tell people, I go, 100 Acre, your favorite wine on someone else's tab.
No, that is
like
so
that's
true.
just the dude.
Right,
like
right,
that's
right,
the jam.
This is only the second time I had 100 Acre wine because the other bottle was a friend of mine.
Yeah,
like that he got like way back, like when it was like first released. What was it? It was like 125. It wasn't.
Yeah, it was like 150.
Yeah, like he got it at 150 a bottle.
But
you got it.
Yeah, but you can understand. In 2000, vintage was our first wine at 150. Harlan was 300.
Right.
So that was a grip of money for sure. Wines like these, what I try to tell people is like, we're not. Okay, would you want to eat at French Laundry every day? Like French Laundry, you'd say, dude, it's over the top. It's opulent. It's just yeah, that's the thing. Like that's the jam that they're doing. Right. They're trying to make wines that are, expressive and big and this, that, and dynamic and blah, blah, blah. You go to Alinea, you don't want, sugar balloons and, food that's shattered and nitrogen, but you dig it. You don't go, that's trash.
Right.
You go, oh, that's that thing.
Yep. That's that.
You know what I mean?
experience,
And
right.
at the level when you're talking about our wines, you're talking 500-600 cases. These are not 80,000 cases. So they're designed to be drunk occasionally. They're designed to be drunk, as Jason says, you drink it on your best day and your worst day.
Yep.
Like that's what we're all about, and it's like break glass in case of emergency or on your birthday. Like that's, you want to have a bottle. Like when he writes his letters, like right before COVID, right after COVID, he goes, the apocalypse has come. The doors are closing. In 72 hours, there will be no 100 Acre left. We will be doing airdrops out of helicopters with parachutes and your doorway. If you order within 72 hours, you do not want to be in your bomb shelter with your mother-in-law with no 100 Acre. Under no circumstance, share it with her. These types of stuff. He's like, dude, this is your joy in a bottle.
Right.
Like, and with a great bottle of wine, like, and trust me, you don't have to spend this much money to have that experience.
Right.
There's no question. But I've also tasted a lot more and had way less. You know what I mean? So price, expectation, it's like the Buddha said, expectation is the enemy of happiness.
Yep.
So your expectation, your presupposition is your enemy with regard to how you're going to appreciate any wine whatsoever.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So man, like things turn around in college. You the term they use, you reinvented yourself, and I love that. Like, so how did you transition in restaurants? Were you working in restaurants in college? How did this?
So and the like hustler spirit, like I worked as a busboy at Outback when I was in high school, but when I came in college, like I was about sales. Dude, I was selling cell phones. I had the record at AT&T for most like flip phone brick phones sold in one day. It's like 27. Like I got like a plaque at AT&T at like 19. I was like, bam, you need that Motorola flip phone slim, $72 a minute, first minute free. I was all about that. And then I started like getting into that. and because I like commission.
Yeah.
Like I can hustle. Like I don't want an hourly anything.
Yeah.
I want nothing per hour, and you pay me per commission. Cool, because I will outwork you, and I love the sale, like this, like the Savannah Lion. You know, I love that piece. And then when I started working for a sales company. So fun fact, I was the sales director for a company called SWAT, Summer Winter Action Tours. Okay. We used to take 5,000 kids down to spring break for 4 weeks. So I would go down to spring break. I would sell the trips to Arizona State, San Diego State, blah, blah, blah. And then I was the MC of the parties, Platinum Pleasures Ball and all this
That's
type of
where I
stuff.
know
A
you're
lot
from.
of like
He's
Crush
like,
Velvet.
He's like in the background of all these Girls Gone Wild videos.
Dude.
No, I bullshit.
Sugar Ray. I was talking smack about frosted tips. My tips were frosted. Okay? Frosty. Okay?
Frosty.
So frosty. The amount of Crush Velvet and like Leopard and like platform, it was just it was like a bad swingers porn party, and I was like 20. So I used to like go and travel and do these events and this stuff, and like love to throw a party, get to know people, and I, you know, as I said, I came from this kid that had no friends to like knew everybody. It was like I literally was like I had somebody meet me, like met me in from high school, like 3 years later in college. I'm like, dude, what happened to you, man? How much drugs are you on? I'm like, a lot of drugs, so much. And I met a girl who was the sales rep at UNLV in Las Vegas, and I just like totally fell in love with her. And the summer of my junior to senior year of college, I was dating her long distance in Las Vegas, and I said, dude, I'm moving to Vegas. So I like packed my truck up and I moved to Las Vegas.
He's a swingers. Probably. What do you mean we're going to Vegas? We're going to Vegas, baby. You gotta get you the fuck out of Dodge,
dude. Totally. It's like, hey, double down. Hey, double down. Yeah.
You think we'll be up there in 5 minutes? We'll be up 500 minutes. Vegas.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, dude, we were supposed to double down.
Yeah.
You did the right thing.
Yeah.
No.
No.
So I get out there, and after like a week of couch surfing, I'm living with her and her sister. They're like, "Oh, you need a job, dude." I'm like, "Okay, well, I have no skills. Like Vegas, I don't know anything." So her father was a pit boss for high limit baccarat at Caesars. And his name was Nick Boxo. Dude, I owe my career to this dude. He's still alive today.
That does sound like a pit boss's name, though.
Yeah, and he was Italian. He was like Italian. He was like he looked like straight out of like a mob movie. Like Nicky Walnuts could have been his name, but he spoke like French, Italian, Farsi. He was like a trippy dude. He was a very cultured guy, but like looked like, you know, Polly Walnuts kind of vibe. Yeah. And so I go, hey, Nick, I need Mr. Boxo, number one. You didn't call this dude Nick, dude. He had hairy knuckles for sure. You know, he goes, okay. So he calls Wolfgang Puck, and he goes, hey, I need you to get my boy a job. And he goes, okay, no problem. Show up for a shift, blah, blah, blah. Well, back then, Spago was... like Spago Vegas was the first high-end restaurant in Vegas. Right. Like this was before the Bellagio.
He's the real, like I think he's like the real, he was the first celebrity chef.
He was the real deal.
I mean, like Julie Child, there are people at cooking shows, but Wolfgang Puck was he was a celebrity chef.
Yeah, you know, he was in LA, he was doing the thing. And like this was a restaurant that had front waiters, back waiters, front waiters. You know, I didn't understand all that stuff. So I get the job.
But here's the thing. I got
jump in.
Fucking Nicky just called Wolfgang Puck and said, give my boy a job.
Well, and here's why. Because he had all the high-limit gamblers.
I was going to say,
so he would send them on casino comps. So Nick, you wanted to like do a solid for Nick, and he was a Guido style, so he was like all about the you hook me up.
You scratch my back,
totally,
I'll scratch your back.
And so I go there. I remember the first day that I get there. One of the guys I'm actually meeting on Thursday works with for Daniel Boulud at Le Pavillon. Was one of the dudes there like 20-something years ago, and he's like running stuff here with Boulud. I get there, and he didn't tell me this. He told Wolfgang that I had fine dining experience. I knew about wine. My favorite food's meatloaf, okay? That's just to let you know how I feel. So I remember getting at the lineup, the first lineup, they had a chef. His name was David Roberts, who was like their executive chef. And they go, okay, you know, they go over the menu, like what's tonight? Like, okay, we're having duck confit with frisée, with the bacon, da-da-da. We're having, you know, braised blah, 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 blah. Ossobuco with saffron risotto. We're having, you know, tarte tatin flambé. Never heard of a damn word. Didn't know.
It was
anything.
like Charlie Brown. Wah, 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 wah. Wah, 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 wah,
yeah.
wah.
Braising? What? Confit? What? And so I remember training the first day when you're a waiter, you don't do anything. You just like watch them, right? And you know, they're serving on the left. They're like doing Dover sole with like French service with like a fork and a spoon with one hand. And it was like, And so that night I get home, Nick ends up, I call Mr. Boxell. I go, hey, Nick, I need to see you. Go at his house at 1 a.m. and I go, Mr. Boxell, I'm going to get fired and you're going to look real bad because you told them I know something. They're going to know tomorrow. I don't know anything, you know? And he goes, okay. So he takes a table, he takes his dining room table, puts all the service, sets an entire service up, and we did wine service, food service that night and every night for the next 2 weeks in after shift. And he got me just there. He just got me there, like enough. Like I could bullshit my way there. But I learned, dude, I learned with like, you know, how to open a wine, how to decant a wine, how to, you know, what a butter knife, why you're doing X and Y. And dude, my life changed because of that. I mean, my entire trajectory of my life changed because this guy just like gave me like a week or two of love, you know?
No, your entire life changed because you met some girl on spring break who went to an LV and then you father out
Audrey,
there.
she's married. She's a lovely girl. She got 2 kids, all that stuff.
But no, that's an amazing story.
Yeah.
Well,
and then he started sending me the casino comps.
Wow.
So I'd have guys, I mean, the second week, he sends me a dude that had a big gambler, $5,000 casino comp. This is 1999. So $5,000 for lunch for 2 people. And if you don't spend the money, they lose it. So they buy 10 bottles of wine.
Right.
They buy 6 bottles of wine. They're drinking 1 glass and leaving it. Mm-hmm. So at 21, 22, I'm drinking like banger wines. I was just talking to a girl that I chat with. She works for Quintarelli. She's in her early 20s.
Oh, wow.
And I was just telling her the story today. I'm like, at 22, I drank your bucket list of wine, and I was a knew nothing
That's
about
me.
it.
I was a little bit older, but when I started at Acre, my first like 3 months, man, after my first like year in wine, so I was 97, 99. They came out with the top 10 wines a day. I had 8 of the top 10 wines.
Yeah.
It's not including all the crazy verticals and shit that because they had the wine workshop. Like, and I knew shit about wine, but then that like set my palate to a different place, and I began to understand.
Well, and I got to tell you, for me, like as a like hustler, I'm like, oh, they tip on this. Like I can only sell you 1 steak, but I can sell you 5 bottles of wine.
I love that.
So that part of it got like my hustler spirit. Mm-hmm. I was like, next day, okay, Windows of the World by Kevin Zraly, Janice Robinson's book, Wine for Dummies. Like you went to Crown Books, like you didn't go, you know, and stacked it up. And I was like, okay, to me this was like drug dealing. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna learn how to slang it and make money.
Yeah, man.
You know, I remember I walked out. It's like maybe the second month I was there. I walked out with $1,000 in 1999. I had never made $1,000 in 2 months, you know, and I blew every damn dollar of it that night. I was like, yes, sir, you know, but
you gotta go big.
But I realized, we used to say in Vegas, it's not how much you walked out of the restaurant with, it's how much you woke up with. Like, oh, you walked, you know, but I learned like, oh, okay, this is selling. And then I actually found something I love selling. Like people were into it, man. And then I got to meet cool people and then I got to eat good food. And so it sort of accidentally started this journey for me in fine wine. And, you know, I also just saw how much joy it gave people. Like people were like into it. They wanted to be sold good wine. They wanted to be told a story. They wanted to hear about X, Y, and Z. Like one of the first wines that I ever learned the story of was Silvio Yermann. So this Italian producer, he had a wine.
Oh yeah.
Jermann or MAN, and he makes a wine called Vintage Tunina, which is like a blend of like Tokai Friulano, Ribolla Gialla, Piccoli, Chardonnay, and the name Tunina was Casanova's #1 lover. And I remember telling that story to people, and they were like, "That's sexy." I'm like, "Yeah." And that was like that selling like thing, like, "Oh, I just dropped a little." Little #1 Casanova's #1 lover on you, and they were like tipping me more, and I'm like, oh, so like that storytelling and that desire to be engaged was really, really cool with regard to that.
He makes a good rosé out of Nebbiolo. Everything. I mean, it's like $30 too. I mean, but
I mean, he makes like big dog wines, Capo Martinos and Weird Dreams and stuff. But
But I love that. As he said, I mean, so like it's a wild city living in Vegas. Like you went out and spent $1,000 that night. You just blew it all, which I would have did the same thing too. Man. But like
give a 22-year-old $1,000 in cash. Like okay, like you know, this is a problem.
I mean, anywhere but in Vegas. It was like.
Well, let me also preface one thing. I have to say something funny. Spago and Wolfgang Puck was the first restaurateur in Las Vegas to be non-union. So in Vegas, if you were a waiter, you had to be drug tested in Vegas. He did not. So it attracted like all of the like
it was a real restaurant,
druggy, crazy Anthony Bourdain Kitchen Confidential style. Like, so it was just a zoo there.
Yeah.
But they were doing 500 covers a night, like epic stuff. But it was like, I'm in a madhouse of psycho people. But it was great, you know. I was like,
I was just talking about that. Like, yeah, like literally, there can be. So it's like you said, like non-union, like restaurants are like, oh yeah, it was did an IG live, but like, yeah, it's almost like carnies, like you know that carny where people are weird and they like, we can make some money today, you know, like they were gonna do drugs all night long.
Yeah, right. It's like tonight we're gonna take over the world. You're just gonna finish all these drugs first. You know what I mean? And like, it was totally that. I mean, when I read Anthony Bourdain's book, I was like, oh, I've seen all of that.
Yeah,
you know? You know, I was like, and I grew up in a crazy life, so as a young buck, so I was like, that wasn't too weird for me. I was kind of like, oh, okay. Like other people would be like, this is an unsafe place. I'm like, no, this feels pretty good.
Fine. What are you talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. He's drinking at 8 in the morning. That seems about right. He doesn't have to work for 5 more hours. He's good. You know, it's like, oh, no. He didn't start drinking at 8 a.m. He's still drinking.
Yeah,
he's been
up. It's okay.
It's totally different if you didn't start at 8. You're just finishing at 8. Totally different style. You got to understand these things.
So that being said, like, and I love what you said. Like, so many people like, I say this a lot. It is. I love the romantic side. I'm a romantic. I'm a Cancer. What can I do?
Yeah. Even I'm a water sign too. I'm a Scorpio, so I'm with you on that.
And while we're talking about our romantic sides and our water signs, we should take a quick break and we'll come back and we'll hop into a little bit more about Vegas. All right. So we'll be right back, everybody.
Awesome.
Okay, we're back. So Vegas is, so you got people getting comps.
Yeah. You're drinking like epic wine every night, like free, you know, it's a trippy situation.
So like there's ballers and there's posers. Did you ever have any like posers come through?
Oh yeah, for sure. You know, you'd have the like, you know, like waxing poetic about a Santa Margarita Pinot Grigio or, you know, we'd also get a lot of guys that would like talk super big about a wine and then you'd taste it and it was corked, you know, that kind of stuff. Like, in Vegas, you had a lot of that. I'll tell you a great story though. We had a great guy that used to come in all the time. He wasn't a poser. This dude was rich. Okay, I won't say his name, but he used to come in, and he would always be with 2 or 3 prostitutes every time. Like very.
I'm glad you didn't say his name.
Yeah, very high end, but they were very high end prostitutes. And
he was say something, but I was like. So initials are CS.
Yeah, exactly. So it ends with, it starts with Mandan and ends with Mike Schmeichel, you know, so or something like that, you know. And he would come in all the time and he would drink baller wine, like great champagne, Salon, old wines, whatever. And like after about the 20th time I was there with him, like the hookers didn't care about the wine. Like they were like working, they were drinking champagne. So I used to lean in his ear and I go, hey, you know, you don't have to spend this wine money. I'll bring them some like Moet Chandon or something, whatever. You know, you don't spend this. He goes, but then you would ruin this beautiful fiction. Like he's like, oh, I'm on a date. Right. Like I'm on a date with these four. Like he was like living in his like, he was golden. He's like, no. I'm out with 3 hot chicks that want me a lot, and they love these wines. Ooh, isn't this Tolden Nebbiolo amazing? Jersey Turnpike, Skylar Rain. Like, how do you feel? How do you feel the 74 was as a vintage? Was it a little reductive? You know what I mean? And he was down like that, you know. And I realized like Vegas, you go to be like it's got a lot of negatives, but the joy of it is that you go to be whatever you want to be for whatever you want to be. And people that live there are doing that too.
Oh, yeah.
You know, they're like everybody you met's like got 3 side hustles.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And they're
trying
to
like Elvis, they're
you work at a weird thing, but you're starting a new business and you're going to own a nightclub and it's going to be in a car wash and like no one's going to know about it. You know what I mean?
It's called the bubble room.
Yeah, it's like strippers, like bubble you down, and we serve only Tete Cuvée champagne, but it's open from 12 a.m. to 5 a.m. So it's like a late night, after hours, bubble wash, car wash, strip club.
And if you and no one knows where it is per se because you got to come in through the side door. Yeah, no, I totally get it.
The cops were paying attention all the time.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so that was Vegas, you know. So if you want to get down and you want to understand, like, you want to get the best experience in wine and, like, see how bizarre the wine world is in a wonderful way, like, that was definitely the place for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I went to Vegas one time with a client. When I lived in Santa Barbara, a client literally walked into the wine shop. I worked in Montecito. He's like, what time do you get off? I'm like, I get off at whatever time. I was like, I get off at 7. He's like, no, you're not. You're getting off now. I'm taking you to Vegas.
Yeah.
And this dude bought me a ticket to Vegas.
Yeah.
We went to Vegas. He was a VIP. They picked us up. Fucking dude staked me $1,500.
Yeah.
You know, I won like 5,000, gave him his 1,500 back.
A lot of these dudes are lonely.
Yeah, and that's what I got.
They got dough, and they need
goes,
people to go with.
Exactly,
who can go on a Tuesday at 3 o'clock?
Exactly.
And just bail?
Literally, who? Yeah. Like he knew me. I sold him wine for like 2 months.
Yeah.
And like he and you like it's lonely. Like you said earlier, like there's a lot of people who have a lot of money, but they're still a loser because they're not fulfilled inside. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I had one of those wild nights in Vegas, man. I was like, whatever you want, dude.
Yeah.
You know,
I've seen it for sure. I mean, I've lived on and off in Vegas 3 times. I still have a lot of love there. I have a lot of friends there. But you know, Vegas is like the most fun you would never do again. Like I did it. It was epic and great, but it's sort of like, it's like the teacups. You do that ride one time, you want to go like, hey, no one goes on the teacups 4 times. You just barf, you know, it's not going well.
So what would you say your biggest takeaway from Vegas was though?
I think my biggest takeaway was that there's a career in wine. Okay. You know, I was going to be a lawyer. That was my job. I was going to go to law school. I'd actually got accepted to law school. So kind of what happened while I was in Vegas, though, was I studied to become a sommelier. Okay. I got into it. Greg Harrington, who owns Gramercy Cellars now, was the youngest master sommelier in the world. He was 27 and 7 months. He was the somm for all of Wolfgang's restaurants. And so, like, I took his intro wine class. I was like, oh, this is kind of cool, you know, and I was into it. And then it kind of like became a hobby. I ended up becoming a somm and became a floor somm and was buying wine and doing stuff, not just in Vegas, but in some places in LA. And then I was like, oh, I'm going to be a lawyer, though. This was like a way to get through school. And then I, like, basically my summer between going to law school, I went to France and I was like, oh, dude, I was in Pommard and Beaune. I'm like, this is my thing, you know, like I really want to do it. And so, you know, the takeaway was that there's a career in wine. You know, I've been 21 years in the wine business now. And dude, it's a real job and there's money to be made and there's prestige and, you know, like no one knew a wine salesman. Do you ever know anybody in your 20s that worked for a distributor?
No, I mean,
but now you know people all the time that work for beer companies, liquor companies.
I'm like, I should have stayed in wine. I didn't realize it was going to be such a big thing. I joke. I was like, I didn't see it. So that's great that you saw that. That your eye, you know.
People are willing to spend $5,000 on a bottle of wine. Like, okay, I can sell them that. I just got to find that wine and find those people.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that was kind of the idea of all of that stuff. And so that sort of became the journey for me. And, you know, I kind of, one thing that did change for me is I quickly learned that I didn't want to be a sommelier.
Okay.
So I started learning about wine. I was doing the floor, but I realized, and I had several mentors. I want to give a little love to a guy named Chris Levine. He's a senior vice president for Broadbent Wines, so great producers, all these great epic Madeiras. He's a great dude. He taught me a lot about wine early on. But I also kind of realized, like, I didn't like criticizing wine. I like judging my own wine, what I like, but like, there's kind of like a snarky assholeness in sommeliers, and it still exists, but it was very prevalent at the time of like, do you know how hard it is to make a shitty wine? Hard. Even a bad wine takes a lot of work. It takes 12 months of harvest and grinding and sweeping and a lot of money. And I as I started like working with smaller producers, I realized, dude, their lives are on the line here. So the idea of like not supporting them. So I wanted to start working for wineries, the supplier side or the winery side. That was like got me down. Like I was really into that, and I loved meeting the families, and I loved like, dude, we're riding together. So I started working for wineries and only worked for family wineries, and I loved that idea. You know, there was something special. You got to be nuts to be in the wine business. You got to really love it, especially to start a small winery in Sonoma or somewhere in Paso Robles or whatever. You know.
Yeah, no, I mean, I got friends in Paso Robles, and like, you know. Like this one friend, like he's like, I can do this because land was cheap in Paso Robles, and my family bought some acres. Like literally, like you could buy fucking 300 acres for $70,000.
Yeah, right.
In the 70s, and no one knew what it was going to be.
Yeah.
But you know, you make 2,000 cases, 1,500 cases, like, you know, it's a hairy deal, man. You know.
I'll give you a good example, like 100 Acre. You know, we're among many that dealt with this. 2000 vintage, we lost all of our vintage to fire. We lost 10% of our vineyards, so that's have to be replanted, and that takes 5 to 7 years. And then 2021 comes. Now, that's all uninsured. People think, oh, you have insurance. No, wineries do not have insurance on their grapes. Only Gallo does. Only Kendall Jackson
Yeah, I was
does.
going to say, because
You can't afford
right.
$300,000 premiums for something that may happen. You pay that every year for 20 years.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Like those are big because they are multi-billion-dollar operations.
Yeah,
Nobody's like
even us. We make really expensive wines. That means the insurance policy has to be very big.
right.
So we lost all the 2020, and then 2021, no fires, but the crop was down 40%. I mean, that's a 30, 40, $50 million swing, you know? Now, say you're a smaller producer, that's $1 million, $2 million swing. That's your life.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a bittersweet mistress.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you know, you see in France and hail and firestorms and blah, blah, blah. It's like, dude, ain't no easy days in the wine business as far as the production side, you know? And so as I started meeting somms and they were like assholes to producers, I was like, dude, you never worked this hard in your life for one day. And they do it every day. So I got a lot of love for that stuff and the passion and the risk taking, dude. Whoa, for real. So I love it.
So what was like your deal after you said you want to be a somm? So, and I know you like sales, and I heard you on another podcast. You talked about like you're very driven and aggressive. So you set some goals. You want to be a VP of.
Yeah, I wanted to be a VP when I was 30. Right, I was
yeah.
like, okay, VP, that sounds good. Like VP is a good thing.
Yeah.
So I started working for a winery called Chalk Hill.
I've heard of Chalk
in
Hill.
The early days, made great wines.
They did used to make some really good wines.
You know, 1996 vintage was the number 3 wine in the world, Spectator. I was 24 years old. That job, when they hired me, I had zero experience. I had no expertise in this, just bullshitted my way into it. And I just told them, look, dude, no one's going to kill for you the way I will. You know, I literally told it to this dude. I'm like, the VP was like, I was like, oh, I literally said, you see those guys out there? Guys and gals? They ain't going to do for you what I'm going to do. You know, and I kind of gave him this crazy look. It was kind of like taxi driver style. And he was kind of like, I like that. You know what I mean? And so I started working for them. You know, it was a crazy place. And then I became friends with a guy who's my best friend today. His name's Dan Cohn. His dad started the winery, B.R. Cohn Winery.
Yeah,
his dad was the manager of the Doobie Brothers. You know, so they were like growing weed and growing wine. See,
that's
and
a good,
legitimate weed and wine.
A lot of people. That's how they survive.
Like the cover crop was like chocolate, you know, like legitimately this is what was happening, you know. And I started working for them, and that was like really working for a family business. They were batshit crazy. There was 5 kids, 4 kids, ex-wives, 2 ex-wives, So it was like working.
Brothers throwing axes at each other and shit. Like people are crazy. Like, family fights are crazy.
Guys like dropping barrels on people's heads. It was like shit like that. Plus, you had all these rock and rollers that would come in, Hell's Angels. Vince Neil came over and is like drinking whiskey from a bottle and like shooting handguns and the thing. That shit was happening, you know.
Yep.
And so, but I kind of like that too. I came from a chaotic place. I'm like, oh, people are freaked out by this. I'm like, I love this. You're my people, you know? And so I became a vice president at 27. And how I became a vice president was real simple. I go, you guys don't have a clue what you're doing. You need me. Like, I'm going to run it. But I said, if I'm going to tell you a lot of things you're not going to want to hear. Are you ready for this? The medicine is going to burn, but it's going to heal you. Yeah. And you know, I talk like that. I literally talk.
I love that. No,
you
listen,
know,
and you're the adult. People don't even realize the adult room just tells people what they don't want to hear. When it comes to sales and marketing, because so many people, I see it to today, like people trying to sell their wine, they think they have people who are writing copy. I'm like, no, that's like a children's book. You need that. Those words aren't going to make anybody buy anything. You know what I mean? Like you got to break it down for people.
Well, also, if you have a winery, it's like you have the cutest baby. Well, not all the babies are pretty. You know, they may be
that
ugly
episode, right?
Well, yeah, you may be a butt ugly baby, but you're going to be a magical swan later. But we're going to get you to swan. You're not. You're not doing well. You know. And so I started becoming what kind of became my hallmark in the business was I started working for people that like needed help, like that were like needed that cask strength whiskey, and like I could take chaos and a dream and create the future for them. You know, and for that company, we took them from 8,000 cases of wine to 75,000 cases. You know, we were selling multiple wines. We started getting great press. We started doing things differently. And so my career started to, after that, I started working with more wineries. I started working with producers, kind of how I got to 100 Acre. Mm-hmm. Was like, people would recommend, who's the craziest person in the industry? Great, you'd be great for that person. So I started working with people that were artistic, that were eccentric, that were manic. You know, and other people wouldn't be able to deal with them, but I was kind of like, didn't stress me, you know, and what I loved their mania. I loved their artisan. I loved their fact that they wanted to just like, you know, win it all and take all the risk. And, you know, my current owner, Jason, you know, Jason Woodbridge, He is the craziest dude ever. I'm talking like in the world of wine, when that's a lot. There's a lot of crazy, and he loves that crazy. That crazy is his like life, you know? And for me to be with him for so long, anybody that I meet that I tell him I work for him 11 years ago, dude, you made it 15 minutes. Like he's just that kind of dude.
Yeah,
you either work for them for 20 years or you're gone in 15 minutes because he's going to say shit that's nuts. But his approach to winemaking is just savage. And I want to be around somebody who's passionate and talented, you know, and that's where I live now, you know?
Yeah, let's talk about 100 Acre for a second because, like he had some problems when he first came to Napa. He was not liked. He got, like, didn't he like? He had issues. Like he was saying he was dumping stuff wrong. Like there was like early 2000.
So here's what happened. So you have to think about this. If you take our say our peer group, right? Like the most contemporary, like Harlan, Screaming Eagle, Scarecrow, blah, 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 all those kind of guys. All of those people are generally, I like to say, their stories tend to be someone who was very successful doing something else.
Yep.
And they bought a winery.
Yep.
When they had a lot of money.
Yep.
They bought expensive land and they built a lot of stuff and they hired a lot of expensive people to make wine.
Right.
Jason is the owner winemaker. There's no owner winemakers at his level.
Right.
So he's a self-trained winemaker. So he comes into Napa in 1997, 1998, and he's like untrained guy. And you have people that have like Andrei Chelichev, like disciples, people that have been studied in Davis, Bordeaux. They've worked at Dujac, DRC. He's like, I'm a Canadian dude, never made wine before. I'm gonna make the best wine. You guys all suck. That was kind of his general strategy. What he didn't say you sucked. He said, you're charging a lot for something and you're not doing everything to make it the best. That was his idea. He goes, I'm going to kill for this. I'm going to, you know, the term cult wine started in like the 1997 vintage. 94, 95, 96 was like.
Yeah, it was 97 because that's when I came into the business at Acre and we had a cult wine tasting. And it was Screaming Eagle. It was Bryant. The first Turley Zins because Helen Turley made them. The Marcus Sands, all those.
That term cult, and so the pricing was like exploded, right? And
it was like $125 for a bottle of wine that's never been released before.
That was sick, right?
It was crazy.
And what Jason basically was saying is, what are you doing to make sure that this wine is the greatest bottle of wine of all time, every time? And the concepting with 100 Acre was that. He's like, I'm going to create a brand and a wine that's like an idea. It's not a winery. It's like an ideal. I will kill for this. The ring around the bottle, people don't understand this. This is a wedding ring. This is his commitment to you.
Okay, wow.
So this is 24 karat gold that's glazed into the glass. The first vintages, it was all gold leaf hand painted. It took 4 months to paint all the bottles. If you find a bottle now, it looks like all kind of like janky because it kind of like flaked off over time. But he was like, this is my commitment to the customer. This is like, I killed for this. I put all my own money in. I do no other jobs. I make no second labels. I sell no fruit. It either makes it to 100 Acre or it goes in the trash. And nobody does that. So nobody does that. So I mean, name a producer of any wine in the world that just makes one tier.
Only other person I can name is Justin Smith at Saxum. He has the same philosophy. From Jason's like, I'm not doing a fucking second label.
Yeah, I'm not like letting someone
rip on my fruit. And for him, it's all estate fruit. He's all estate fruit.
Yeah, we're estate also.
You know,
and that's a trip, dude. And it's expensive.
It is.
A lot of people don't realize that estate fruit is really magical because you're in control of your destiny. But what if you have a bad year? You can't buy fruit from somewhere else. Right. You can't Band-Aid it.
Right.
Like you're riding and dying like you're in a marriage. Like we're riding and dying together.
Right.
And especially now, kind of fast forward a little bit now, what's happening in the business, I feel like in Napa wine has never been more popular. I mean, the prices are going through the roof. The demand is nuts. 2020 vintage is going to make a very short supply for people. For us, we have no wine. But what's happening is I feel like there's a lot of winemakers. There's only 5 winemakers that make all the wine. The consultant winemaker is very popular in Napa.
Yeah.
So like, dude, mad love to Thomas Rivers Brown. Mad love to Philippe Melga. I know them and like them personally.
Andy Erickson.
Heidi
Tony
Barrett,
Biagio.
So, okay, there's 5 of them,
right.
and they make 300 wines between them.
Yep.
That feels a little less special to me.
Right.
Like, so for Jason, he's like, I make one wine.
Yep.
If you want to try Arc Vineyard, you got to buy this one. I bought the vineyard. I planted the vineyard. So in the very beginning, when you talked about he was a little bit unliked, what happened was he was just challenging everybody, the county, the commissioners. Right. So what was starting to happen was they would say, well, you can't do that. And he's well, why? I own this land. This is my place. Oh, you can't do this, can't do that. And he was kind of like, oh, we're going to do that. Like, I'm going to do it, and you just sue my ass later, and we'll just deal with it. Yeah. So the story the Ark Vineyard was actually a forest. Okay, it's like a forested hillside that surrounded a very famous vineyard by the name of Chabot. That was the piece, like a big part of Beringer Private Reserve in the Sabragia days. And you know, it's very hard to plant a vineyard where there's a forest. Okay, so they told him, well, if you want to plant it, you know, you wait 5 years, 10 years, if ever, you know, to be able to plant it. And he goes, well, I'll move the trees. I'll move them. I was like, you'll move them? Like 5,000 trees? He's like, I'll move them. Still no. Well, he's from Canada, and one of his buddies that was like a timber attorney.
I was like, there's loggers or
timber. Well, no, so his attorney goes, have you ever applied for a California logging permit?
There you go.
That would supersede the county. So what happened was he gets the permit. Yeah, ladies, come on down. Baba, num-nums. You know, so he gets a logging permit. And he moves so he gets approved, supersedes the county, moves all the trees, plants the Ark Vineyard, and then the mistake he made is he told a couple buddies.
Yeah.
Well, now the county commissioners were like, dude, you dead.
Yep.
So he got in trouble for, you know, a well. We got in trouble for, you know, not having a door that was up to code. They were like anything they could get him on. So for the first couple of years, he was like, and you know, of course, it's like felony wine person. And it's like never anything was charged. But it was a response. I would say up until about 5 years ago, dude, we couldn't get a permit for a parking space. Because they're like, all right, dude, you worked us. And it's a mafia thing up there. Like there's one part of it in Napa is quite great. Look, you don't want Napa Valley to be like a mall, right? It's a preserve, it's a trust. But there is a lot of stuff where you go like, we're farmers, like we have to do farming things. And so you know that, but you know what, instead of getting pissed, he's like, you're right, I'm doing it my way. He's like, it's my life. He's like, I don't have $5 million, $10 million, I got this. So as I said, he's a countercultural guy, but this is a dude who bleeds for what he does, you know, and I love that about him.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. But yeah, I mean, something you said earlier and about Napa, and I think people I'm glad you flushed it out. Like there's 5 people who's making like 300 wines, you know, and then there's companies have bought up a lot of smaller family wineries now. Yeah, you know, and even things like, okay, so the Chapelet family was there before Harlan, and like. But he made Pritchard Hill famous. But like, and like to this day, like Chapelet fruit's fucking delicious, man. Like, you know, like, so let's talk about. I know while we finished on Jason, and your bio. This is what Jason said. He said, he is the Genesis, and you are the Exodus.
Yes, and what he means by that is like he's the creator of the wines. You know, and I'm the like leading them out of Egypt, because Jason.
Let my wines go.
Exactly. Well, Jason looks more like a Hell's Angel. He's 6'5", 300 pounds, long hair, beard, skull belt, leather. Like he has a lot of guns and fast cars and blows shit up. I mean, he's the least Canadian ever.
Yeah, I was like, that does not sound like a
so
Canadian.
He's so un-Canadian, it's sick, right? And he loves making wine, but he hates the wine business. The business of wine he cannot stand. He goes, so wait, I gotta I'll just say I gotta meet a sommelier that's 25, that's a wine buyer, doesn't know jack shit. I gotta tell them why my wine's good. Fuck that. Yeah. He's like, you do that. Like I make my wine. If you don't like it, I don't give a shit. Like, and he used to say that a lot. So I would stop taking him to places. Like we were like getting escorted out of places all the time. You don't want to buy my wine? Fuck this place. I'll buy this place and close it down. You know what I mean? Like he would say shit like that all the time. Like. And I was like, oh, okay, we're going to have to stop taking you to these accounts, you know? And so by Genesis, he's the Genesis, I'm the Exodus. Like, you know, before COVID, I travel 180 days a year, 35 countries, and I'm out telling his story. And it's rich. I mean, dude, if you want to tell a story, you want to tell a story of a dude who's doing crazy shit. Because you never run out of material.
Oh, no.
You know what I mean? It's like, and when I tell people these stories, it's like, the taste is very important, but the air around the bottle adds a lot to the experience. It's like, and so if we can create this drama and really these attitudes, and his letters he sends out to the mailing list are just like the ramblings of his like spoken word. It almost sound like, and it's like, dude, this isn't like, oh, the Verasion and the grapes.
We picked that. September was a perfect month.
The wine's flowered in April,
78 degrees days.
We
picked it 23 bricks.
I inside spooned every vine. It took me 17 months to get every single vine, and I nuzzled. You know what I mean? It's like he's like, this wine. He's like, he's telling you like how he felt, like how I feel in April. Dude, I'm doing this. Like this wine made me feel this way. This this person, blah blah blah. And so it's a very emotional space. Like if you asked him, if you did a tasting with him, and he said, "So tell me about the barrels used," is like, why do you give a shit about that? That's irrelevant. Like is that going to enhance your experience? Why don't I tell you like what I was feeling like? Why don't I tell you like what the vintage was happening like when we planted this, when I tasted this wine? Like that's much more interesting than, well, they use this yeast and the pH. Like these are just like innocuous, what I mean? And
I think a lot
of like I'm nerdy about that shit too. No, I'm nerdy enough too,
but that's like every freaking wine podcast is like breaking down bricks and clonal selection and barrels and now listen, there could be some dope shit with I've had dope conversations about barrels, but like they were interesting. It was like, I met Atelier's son, and we drank absinthe all night, and then he made a special barrel. That story I want to hear about how you drank absinthe all night.
And we streaked the vineyards and made a barrel at 3 in the morning, and it had like a unique kind of vibe. Right. Yeah. That's a barrel story.
That's a barrel story. Yeah. Not like, fucking, okay, barrels are, and,
well, like a better story would be like, what story do you want to hear from Angelo Gaia? Like, oh, you did this, you made it this way. Tell me about when you decided to use new oak in Barolo and in area where it was like verboten. Right. Tell me how you felt about that. Tell me how your mentors felt about, like, dude, that makes the wine feel like visceral. It's like something more. It's experiential. One of the things I love to say about wine, and this actually I'm ripping it from Jason, but he's like, dude, wine is a time machine. He's like, we're now 100%. Tasting 2018, October 8th. We're also tasting it right this moment. It will never taste this way again. Yep. When I had this, when I drink this wine, I'm going to tell you when I had it, where I had it, who I had it with, what I was eating. So I'm able to be in 3 places. I'm in the past, the present, and the future at one time. And he's like, great wine that's when you get there. Is like transformative in that particular way. You don't go, man, I had this great martini at the da-da-da-da-da. Or he's like, dude, I had this bottle of wine.
No one ever goes, I had the best dirty martini at no one. No.
Yeah, or remember when that dude brought this wine, it was really expensive, and it was trash, and the $30 bottle that we bought was like epic, and it was like, that wine was like, that's the visceralness, I think, in wine, and I think that's always what we're trying to get to. When I talk about the wines, we generally talk about metaphysics. We're talking about emotions. Yep. Yes, I can tell you that, all these wines are single vineyard. This one is on a 30% slope. This one is in, clay soils, blah, 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 blah. And I'm happy to do that to some time. But I generally feel that experience is less exciting than when I sell you the sizzle. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And when I go to the Somms here in New York is a great example. I mean, I've been coming here a long time, and last night I got to see a bunch of Somms that were like, I knew them when they were like waiters, and now they're like buyers at like Polo Bar and Catch Steak and Jean Georges and these different places, and they always tell me like, dude, I love the way you talk about wine. Right. Like I try to tell people about wine in that particular way, and I think that the connectivity of wine is that time machine emotional thing. That's the extra. I got a free bottle of wine out of it because I got an extra experience out of it, and I really try to foster that in a big way.
Oh man, that's dope. How did he come up with the name 100 Acre, actually?
Yeah, so he's originally from Canada, and he went to high school in Alberta, and if you don't know where Alberta is like the northern reaches of Calgary. He grew up, or now Edmonton, which is in the northern reaches of Alberta. It's all forest there. It's like literally that's like where the timber comes from. And when he used to run through the woods, he used to be like, oh, this is kind of like a magical forest. Like he's really into like the Lord of the Rings. He's into like Winnie the Pooh and these types of things. Then when he
Winnie the Pooh.
So it came from Winnie the Pooh. The name came from Winnie the Pooh.
There you go, Miles. The name did come from Winnie the Pooh.
Yeah. So what happened was, what was the 100 Acre Wood? It was like.
He literally, I'm literally, dude, my son was like, 100 Acre. They didn't have a picture of Winnie the Pooh. And I was like, dude, they're not putting a picture of Winnie the Pooh on a $600 bottle of wine. He's like, but no, you were right. I was wrong. I don't even care. I wasn't wrong. I didn't know.
Well, because like, what was 100 Acre? What was the 100 Acre Wood? It was like Christopher Robin's like special place. Anything could happen there. He didn't live there. He's visited there. And it was kind of a place where like anything could happen. And also when we bought the Ark Forest, his boys, he's got three boys and one daughter. They were young boys, and he would read them Winnie the Pooh, and he used to tell them like, this is your 100 Acre Wood, and it's like everything's possible in the 100 Acre Wood. There's nothing not possible there. It's not a real place. It's an idea.
Right.
And so there's also a lot of symbology in our wines. There's the glazing of the glass, around the neck. On the label itself, there's an excerpt from the Odyssey. It said, "This is a story of a man that was never at a loss for words.
Yeah, now
he traveled the world."
Drips on it. Wow, look at that.
Yeah, and so that's an excerpt from the Odyssey about a person who like traveled the world, got super worked, like things were really hard, saw his friends die, but had experiences, but like rose. Again, on our wine, The Wraith, he wrote another story, and around the neck it says, "Fate whispered to the warrior, you will never survive the storm. The warrior whispered back to fate, I am the storm," And so there's also in our boxes, if you get a wood box, pull out the dividers, and under that, there'll be hidden messages burned into the wood. Longitude, latitude lines, quotes, "Happy birthday, MJ." There'll be 20 different messages each year that he will basically just like riff, And
so Jason, please at some point listen to the Black Wine Guy.
Yeah, if we get a BWGE, we got to get that. You know what? You may not want it in the divider. We're probably going to go for like a sky ride or something.
Yeah,
big thing. That'd be dope to have maybe we'll do like a bespoke one for you. You know what I mean? So you can have it. So most people like, what do they do with the boxes? It's like, okay, I've got like one like knick-knack box, one that I put my weed in it. The other's like make a succulent box out of it. But I don't need for all the boxes. So. But that's what I love about him is like a playfulness. There's a lot of hidden messages in what we do. But
he just reminded me of that Saturday Night Skit. What's that for? You put your weed in it.
Yeah, exactly. I go,
That's a big ass box. I mean, and what are these 3-bottle cases or something?
Yeah, 3-bottle cases. Yeah, so you're putting
that's
like
a lot.
You're putting OZs. Yeah, that's a quarter pound going in there, stacks up, neatly vacuum sealed. I saw a dude on Instagram because like the great joy of Instagram is like they will tag 100 Acre.
Of course.
And the dude made like amps out of them, like little individual like guitar amps out of each one, like travel guitar amps. I've seen, obviously people make tables and all that type of stuff, but it's an experience in that way. Yeah.
So
hey, for $650 a bottle, you should get a box that you can use later for something like a forest. You can make like a kindling for like a fire, something very magical. You need a second use.
My cat Howie the Wine Cat.
Okay.
If you guys want to follow Howie the Wine Cat on Instagram?
I'm following that.
Howie would be up in that box, man.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh
you
God,
put your toy, little toys in it. Yeah.
So here's a guy from Canada, never made wine before, comes down to just fucking kicking ass, taking names in Napa.
But he didn't start that way, MJ. It was like, people don't understand, like when he started, not to cut you off, but so the first wine he ever made was 100 Acre.
Yeah.
So he didn't make like a $20 wine just to try.
Yeah.
He didn't try to like, I'm going to work it out. Like, I'm going to make a $150 bottle of wine. It's going to be expensive. That'd be like if a 3-star Michelin restaurant opened, you never went to culinary school. You taught yourself how to cook. You know what I mean? And the first night it opens, it's like $500 per prefix. And also he was telling people to eat shit. So he was also, he wasn't that nicest dude when it came to that. But like a lot of countercultural figures in Napa started to really like him. The first 3 vintages of 100 Acre, 000102, Kaylee Morgan. If you go in our library, we have very little of it left. And I asked him one time, I'm like, is this because like it was in demand? He's like, dude, we drank that shit. We couldn't sell it. He's like, nobody was interested in the wine at all. So he's like, that was all the wine we had. Like we were like partying. And so the quick shout out to Jay James, Master Sommelier. He was the first sommelier at Bellagio.
Okay.
And Bellagio was a big deal. It was the biggest wine list in the country, you know, and it was a big deal. And he basically met Jason and was like, dude, this dude's batshit crazy, but the wines are epic. We couldn't even get distributors at the time. So it really didn't start like everyone's like, oh, dude, you're balling. For the first 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years, it was like very scary, you know, but he was like so focused. He's like, you know, he's, you know, all the credit cards are max. You're buying the most expensive equipment. You're buying vineyards. Like everything's like on credit, you know, for the hope that one day it's going to go well. And then it did, you know, but it's still been a crazy ride, dude. You know, it's crazy in that way, but sorry. I wanted to let people know because
that's a perfect.
People always think like it's an overnight success. It's like overnight success after 10 years of
well,
like,
that's
hell.
I mean, that's I've read a lot of books on because I worked on myself and like, you know, oh no, most overnight success is fucking 10 years, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I tell people Britney Spears, who I love, and it's kind of batshit crazy, but like she was on the Mickey Mouse Club. Beyonce was 3 years old on fucking America's Got Talent, whatever the fucking show. Like when you see someone who's 17 who's a fucking pop star, they've been singing for 15 years, man.
Yeah, or they've been in church. They've been doing
exactly.
The thing. Yeah,
you know.
Yeah. I mean, I think with wine too, it's like, you know, people really are into the pedigree. If you're gonna pay a lot of money, you're generally not paying for the wine itself. You're paying for like all the the rep, the resume, you know. So.
Correct is wrong. 2,200 point scores.
We just got our 27th 100-point score.
There you go.
You know, look, and I want to say two things. Number one, that's an amazing accomplishment. It's only been,
dude, you're like the fucking Yankees of wine.
Well, we've only been making, we've only had 18 vintages. Okay,
that's even sicker.
So, and he
you're
only
like
makes
the Yankees, the '90s Bulls.
Well, I think the trip of it is number one, like obviously to get a 100-point score is really magical, but to have a lot of success, consistency is extremely important. But one of the things I love about Jason also, you know, we haven't had our wines rated since 2015. He stopped rating them.
Oh, shit.
Because he's like, not to say we won't rate them again, but he's like, you know what? Like, I'm not like on that, you know, like, dude, you don't think Wine Spectator, Wine Advocate, Anthony Galoni, these guys, they all want to rate the wines. Mm-hmm. And he's like, you know what? We're doing well, but I need people to be buying because they're into me. Yeah. Not because like, you know, when I get an importer that emails me like, hey, when's the press coming out? I'm like, never. Yeah. It could come out. Another great story was in 20, the last time we were rated, Lisa Prati Brown did a full retrospective. She was newer with Parker. Yep. And she said she wanted to taste the wines. So Jason said, the only way I'll let you taste my wines is you have to come and taste every single one. So they tasted 84 wines from every single wine he ever made. He goes, you cannot rate my wines until you understand me. If you do not understand me, then I don't want you writing about my wines. So they sat down and tasted all these wines. I mean, dude, you're talking like, do you want to talk about like a tasting of the day? Like when they left, I was like, bam! Like we were like, dude, I was like, you get a car, like giving like the valet at Charter Oaks, getting the deal, like, you know, hooking up my Sunshine Market bagger, like, here, dude, don't tell me when you got this. This is the O2. This is the shit. You know, I'm joking, but you know, so she tastes the wines. She does a full retrospective. She gives his 2015s, all 5 wines get 100-point scores. She gives him another 3 wines retrospectively that had hundreds, which is like the greatest day in a cellar, like as a winery. I mean, just for like prestige and also for sales. First question, he goes, what didn't she like? He wasn't pumped at all about the press. You know what wines did she downgrade from Robert Parker? He was tripping on the one got a 99, 98. It was a 99. He's like, what didn't she like? And that's kind of that artist, like he's confident, but he's also like really he's, you know, that tripped me out. I was like, Jason, you should be like, we're done, dude. We don't have to sell anything anymore. Like people, the fax machine was like, you know, or whatever. Like our phone's ringing off the hook to buy the wine. And then he didn't rate the wines again since that time. So since December 8, 2018, he hasn't rated the wines. And so, because he's like, dude, we need to like calm this down. Yeah. He's like, I don't want to be the dude that like 99 is not good. Right. You know what I mean? Like I'm making my thing. I also don't want to be influenced. Yeah. Because what starts to happen is like, dude, when you're a chef and you get a 3-star or 3-star Michelin or New York Times gives you a 5-banger or whatever, you start like, now you're chasing that dragon. Yeah. How do you keep it? Right. How do you keep relevant? You know, and then it starts messing with your psyche a little bit. And I think he's constantly trying to like do his thing, you know, and I give him a lot of credit for that. And it's also worked. I mean, because, in a lot of ways, because now the people that really buy our wines are just like totally into what we're doing, and that's a special thing.
That is,
and you're not in the machine.
Yep.
We're not worried about advertising. We're not worried about how much money we spend, how much ass we kissed. You know what I mean? And I think that's we're in rare space in that way. As I'm telling you, dude, when you're in young winery and you get a 92 or something like that, dude, that changes things. In a good way. So anyway.
No,
it's stressful too, though.
So we got a little bit more time left.
Okay.
You guys recently expanded into Malaysia.
Yeah. Okay.
And you were quoted as saying, Southeast Asia is one of the most exciting wine and food scenes in the world, and the buzz for wines from California has been building for many years.
Yeah.
Talk about that. Because your fiance is actually hail Southeast Asia.
Yeah, she's Cambodian. Yeah. She says in her words, she's a jungle Asian. They didn't drink no wine in Cambodia, but she likes wine. So, when I started selling the wines internationally, there was no demand in Europe at all. I mean, you couldn't go to Europe.
Yeah.
And then in Asia, wine is not a part of their culture. But they're interested in eating, dining this, and they got into French wine. The Bordelais were pumping Europe, Asia like crazy. And they were and the sophistication for wine was very low, but the money was very high.
Got it.
So people were just acquiring stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And they were very interested in the French wines, and Burgundy didn't, no white wines, no Pinot Noirs, like cab, and Bordeaux and whatever. And it became kind of a status thing. And then as I started bringing Napa wines, there was not a lot of demand there. But it's the most exciting food scene out there. Dude, do you know what Cabernet pairs with in Asia? Almost nothing. Go to a Chinese food restaurant and have Sichuan, no wine pairs with that. If you want, now, sushi and certain things pair with champagnes and whites, but no red wines. Yeah. Bordeaux pairs with nothing.
Right.
So you were eating these cuisines and none of the wine really paired, but there was this epic food scene. And as I started to it was fun for me because I was really educating people on wine. No one had heard of 100 Acre. In Cali, they know 100 Acre. So I'm kind of doing the quick story. Oh, Jason, you already know him. You tried da-da-da. Dude, I'm in Malaysia. I'm in Thailand. I'm in places. And I'm they don't know much about wine. And so it was really fun to kind of do the Fisher Price My First Wine class, but they also had a shitload of cash.
Right.
So that was also nice, Right. I went to a tasting once in Singapore where 12 people were at the table. There was $40 million in assets at the table, and one of the guys managed the sovereign wealth fund of Singapore at $365 billion. That night, those guys drank $80,000 worth of wine. And it was they were literally drinking it like this. Boom! Boom!
Right.
61 Cheval Blanc. Bam!
Shots.
It was it was a frat party of really and it was the wines were really hot. And it was it's sticky there. It's 100% humidity. You drink a hot wine and it's red. It's it just catches in your throat. It's kind of it's curdled milk, And they're sweating. I'm sweating. Have some more of this. I'm no, these. I'll have a beer off the cheapest beer bottles. It's 98 degrees and 100% humidity. But it was exciting. Now Cali wines are really doing right. In Asia and also Europe, dude, we're selling a lot of it's a big deal to be selling wine in the UK is our second biggest export market.
I would think that's a big deal for California. People don't give a fuck about the Judgment of Paris or then how California wines won again. But now that the fact that it is in a market like the UK, which drove the market for Claret, and everything.
Yeah.
And they were the auction houses and everything. The fact that a wine is now shown up there, that is huge.
Yeah, it's straight in London, in the UK, it's kind of trippy. We're sold by Waddinson, and Waddinson is the Rothschild family.
Okay.
They only sell their wines. So they only sell the Rothschild wines and 100 Acre. So it's we're the only non-Rothschild wine of Jacob Rothschild. It's and that was a big deal. That was straight. We did the tasting at Waddinson Manor. This is straight out of they're fox hunting in the front.
Yeah, it's
and,
straight out of
they're
PBS
drinking
and shit.
Yeah,
right?
no, and they've got the hound's tooth and little derbies, and they're
release the hounds, Smithers.
To get a guy who's drank every vintage of Mouton is drinking 100 Acre. You're damn, we made it. You know what I mean?
That's that's the Jefferson. You done moved on up to the big side.
And I love that. That was always a great excitement for me.
So, you work for this iconic, big, bold Cabernet Sauvignon producer.
Yeah.
Like what do you drink? What's like your nightly drink if you're not when you're not working? Like so you mentioned you had a cool you had a Nicolas Jolie from Loire Valley.
Yeah.
What and like you told me like I got to get one of these South African wines. You told me
Sadie family.
Sadie family.
Yeah.
What are you drinking? Like what do you like to drink?
I'm sort of like the way I am with wine is the way I am with music. I like get in and like go down the rabbit hole. Like I'm the guy who like finds a band and like gets all their catalog, listens to it, and I'm like that with wine. So it's funny, we were kind of like hacking on natural wine, and so it's like kind of like doing an exploration of natural wine. Like it was not a magical exploration as far as I was concerned. The weird part is I just tasted a lot of like weird stuff.
Yeah,
like
that's
they were
the
just
problem.
kind of doing stuff.
Yeah.
But then I met some producers that were like OG natural. But they didn't pimp it as natural.
Exactly.
So
that's
like,
what I've said. Yeah.
So like Emilio Pepe from Abruzzo.
I
like
that Trebbiano de Abruzzo.
Dude, Trebbiano de Abruzzo, the Pecorino. I just had a bottle of Cote last night of Emilio Pepe 2013. They still foot tread. They do everything in cement. They recork wines. Dude, it's no sulfur. And these wines are off the charts, but they're not like. But they're not like we're natural. They go, no, this is just the Abruzzo way.
Yeah, exactly. When you start marketing it that way, you got a problem. Like people have been making wines naturally for years and biodynamically, and I don't want to pay to get whatever certification. Like but like, I for me it's a red flag when that's like the first thing out front.
Well, so I'll tell you this great story. So there was a guy. I'll tell you what I'm really into right this moment.
Yeah.
But so there was a guy who was like, his Insta handle was like, natural wine freak nasty 420 or something. You know what I mean? And he had a bottle of 100 Acre that like Rob Gronkowski had in his hand. It was like, jock boy, F boy wine, love, and he was like talking shit, and I sent him a message to him, and I was like, hey, bro, I'd love to just talk to you about our wines. So at least, have you ever had them before? Do you know anything about them?
Like,
I took the high road. I was like, instead of being like, you're a wanker, you know what I mean? Like, da-da-da-da. And I told him, I said, I'd love to tell you something about 100 Acre because, our wines, we don't rack the wines. We leave the wines on the lees until they're bottled, which means that we don't have to sulfur the wines every 4 months as we rack them. So these wines see 95 to 98% less sulfur than any wine on the planet. Not because it's natural, but because, we're trying to keep the wine chill. So this is kind of natural shit. Like we don't do, we're not adding sugar. We're not doing all this kind of like dark arts stuff. And I was like, hey, I don't care if you like the wines, but just like know what you're talking about.
Exactly.
Like
shut the fuck up, bro.
Like talk that talk.
Yeah.
And then so another wine I'm really into right now
Punks jump up to get beat down.
Yeah, man. So one of the wines I'm into right now is Sadie family, S-A-D-I-E, from Swartland. And this guy, Ibn Sadie, is probably one of the world's most mind-blowing and innovators of regenerative farming, which I find much more interesting than natural wine.
Yep.
And regenerative farming is basically like totally making the ecosystem of the vineyard. Like you're not paying attention to the fruit, you're paying attention to the dirt.
George Washington Carver. Imagine if George Washington Carver were a vineyard manager.
Dude, he'd be like the hippie
Yoda
of biodynamic
saved
stuff.
The South after all they did for him. But like when you talk about regenerative farming, like that's who comes to mind for me. Like
so he found all the
whole ecosystem.
He's in Swartland, and so he found all these like old vines like Palominos, Chenin Blancs, Semillons, all this Tinto Barocca. And they're like so old, they're 120 years old. Bush vines, they're producing nothing. Like they're producing very little, and they're in a drought area. So he like brought them back with regenerative farming to get them. And now the wines are like, oh damn! And my buddy Chris Levine from Broadbent, they sell those wines.
He said they pimp them.
They pimp those wines. He gave me one of the bottles one time, and I was like, and then I like bought everything I could find. I'm like fanboying on YouTube and all that. So I'm into that. But then I'll like make myself sick. Like I'll drink all that and I'm like, I'm done, and then I'll go, I'm like, I don't want those anymore. And then I'll find something else. So I'm definitely like people always ask me like, dude, what's your favorite wine? I go, the next wine. I'm just really finding whatever the next wine is. And what I also say, I like wines that are not replicatable. So like Emilio Pepe Trebbiano, Pecorino d'Abruzzo, Tinto Barocca from Swartland, like you can't just go do that somewhere else, So when I find producers like a Didier Dagano from Loire, that person is doing their thing. There's no substitute. Nicolas Jolie, you can't just go find another one of those. So I love that type of stuff, because I feel special. I'm like, dude, I'm drinking like the one.
Yeah.
This is the one jam,
Yep.
you know. So, what about you? Like, one thing when I first got turned on to you, you know, I was saying you were like, I don't remember which wine it was, but it was either like maybe it was the Walls or one of the ones. You were in from Walla Walla, and it was like, you know, straight out of Compton. You know what I mean? It was like with the wine. I'm like, that is the perfect wine pairing for this. And then you were like Turtle Rock and different. Like you were like getting into wines, and they were in areas that were sort of off the beaten path, newer style producers. And I love that stuff, dude. I'm the first dude that's like going out and buying that. I'm like, great.
Yeah.
Like if somebody's like super pumped up, I'm like, I want to be pumped up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I want to find the new thing.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm also like a proselytizer. I'm like, oh, you got to get this.
Yeah, me too.
You know, and I give a lot of wine away, and I'm like, I've like bought 12 backs. I'm like, I only have one bottle of, because I'm just like, oh, you got to try this. You got to try this. Like, because that's the jam, dude. Is like turning people on to a hot restaurant or new wine.
Yeah,
like,
that's the shit for me, you know, and like, you know, that's what I love about it. Like it's the excitement, it's the story, and you know, does it taste good? And that was like kind of my thing on Instagram initially, and like now I'm busy doing this shit, and I don't do enough wine reviews.
Yeah.
But there will be something on a label. Someone like, you know, when I got an interview for Jeb Dunnick, I was like, you know, like it might be ARC. I'll go find a sign that says ARC, right? Or like, I'm looking at this. I love this. He's Canadian, but it says United States of America. So American on it.
Yeah.
Like it's the subliminal. I'm like,
that's like a lot. He could have put USA.
Exactly.
Good.
Yeah.
Like,
It goes, United States of America. So I'm thinking I would do like Childish Gambino. This is America. Like with
Oh, dude, for sure.
You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Right.
And it's like a very dark wine.
Right.
Right.
It's
This like Childish Gambino.
And so this is America.
Yeah, for
this
sure.
Is America.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
A
I'm so cold. Like
a fucking Canadian who's committed to making the best wine in the world, man. So
well, and also too for me, like, I can't be like, hey, you got to really try 100 Acre. You sound like a prick. It's $650 a bottle.
Exactly.
Oh, you got to get you some of this. I'm
Hey.
like, I can't afford it either. So, you know, you got to find like, you know, my Instagram is I ate what? IATEWHAT.
Yeah. I ate what?
I ate what? Because people were always like, I'm eating out all the time, and you know, and I was like, what are you eating? What are you tasting? Where's the spot? And so everyone's always hitting me up because I probably know where to eat, where you're going.
You do.
If I don't know, and I'm always down. So Instagram was like, dude, and it was always like, oh, you got to try this. Oh, I met a wine shop, met some cool person, met a cool girl, this, that, chef, blah, blah, blah. So that was like the explorational thing, you know, recommending $1,000 wines. Like, yeah, it better be really good.
Yeah, no.
This is good. Dipshit. It's $1,000. It's like, it's a Mercedes payment. Okay. Like, yeah, it's good. You know, so anyway.
Fucking Landon Patterson. We're out of time, man. Holy shit. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, man. Thanks for putting up with me.
Dude, you are a gentleman. Mr. John Ward, who passed away a few years ago, was my cross-country coach. And he used to say this, but this definitely applies to you. You are a gentleman and a scholar.
Oh, thank you, my brother. I feel the same way about you.
And, man, thank you so much for coming here and making this happen.
Yeah, dude.
I'll be debuting some wines with us.
Yeah, man. Come see me. Come check me out on I Ate What. You'll start to see where I'm traveling to. We have some new brands coming out, new wines coming out next year. A little less than $6.50 a bottle, so we can get in on a Tuesday. And would love to show you guys those. And come check me out. I'm around the world, so I'm coming to a city near you at some point soon. So.
Very nice. Yeah. So it's the letter I. These are 15. The 15.5 is kicking in now.
Yeah. I brought 2 bottles of wine because everyone else bringing one. I know. Bang, bang, bang. Like, two bottle bangers here. Okay.
He's from the West Coast. He's from the LBC. He's like, fuck you, bitches. I'm bringing 2 bottles.
Yeah.
And they're bangers.
Everybody got their cup, but they ain't chipped in. Okay.
So IATE what? And man, thank you so much. So I'm a little banged up, guys. Here, I'm like just kicking in now. But until the next time, cheers to the Mavericks, which you and Jason are, philosophers, which you definitely are, deep thinkers, and all the wine drinkers. MJ, peace, everybody.
Cheers, brother. Wonderful.